Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Super interesting bloke. Done so much fishing, but he's done so much other stuff as well.
I don't know how he does it all.
I don't know. He's another Rob Hughes. Seems like you speak to him and he's like, he's been fishing, he's been out on his bike, he's done 100 miles, and it's like, all right, what haven't you done this week?
He's a machine, old Nige, isn't he?
Nige is it.
Yeah, he's on it all the
great.
time.
Again, one of the guests that I've built a closer relationship with, and I speak to Nigel quite a lot. And he's normally been out on the bike or running his women's rugby team, or
another thing he does.
But he's just got an interest in everything. Some people, they're so engrossed in one thing that they're not interested in anything else, but he is like...
Oh, sorry, Bev, you right to pick the mic up again for us, please?
There we go.
Yeah, but he's so engrossed in sort of everything that he does, and it just makes it more interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, they just become a bit more of an excited, rounded person.
Yeah, and for doing this as well, I want someone that's like been out in Kazakhstan and
some of them stories they had though, that's just cool. Like when he was saying about, was it he was on touring and they'd pulled up somewhere and something to do with a guy with a gun in a boat, and I was just imagining myself being there. I think when I was listening to it, I was training for the spine race. It was early back end of last year, and I was running somewhere really remote, and I was like thinking, imagine if like somebody just ran out of here with a gun. What would I do? What would you do if somebody just approached you with a gun? It's like, you've just got to play it cool, haven't you? You like...
Yeah, ask Nige.
He totally did play that cool as well.
Yeah, it sounded like he played it cool, didn't he? And
he
I was
did.
just like, you just channel you in a Nige, don't you? Just like, it's fine, it's just a guy with a gun.
Can I borrow your gun? Let me have a go. Yeah, I'll give you 10 quid.
That was brilliant.
Do you want a beer?
Yeah. I like his contingency. Like he buys all the fags and everything before he goes out as well. Before his.
It's like
this is part of it.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you do all right.
You ever seen that film War Dogs with Jonah Hill and Miles Teller?
That's a brilliant film.
It reminds me but there's a part in that where they get to the roadblocks and their guide just pulls up and it's all the guns on them and the lights are on. He goes, it's fine. And he does. He chucks a couple of boxes of cigarettes out and they let him through. Yeah. Well, I just imagine that as Nige. Everybody panicking and Nige going, hang on, it's fine, one sec, here you are. Out the window and they let him, cheers Nige.
That was a cool scene in the film, wasn't it? You're thinking, crikey, what's going to... Yeah, you want to be with Nigel Botherway on those trips for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bev Clifford, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show.
Eventually. It's taken a while.
Well, it has, hasn't it? We went into lockdown, didn't we, again? Yep. So, but no, it's really good. It's really good. Not making too much of a big deal, but obviously you're our first female guest on the show as well.
Yeah. I think you should have had Katie Watkinson on by now. She's a Korda angler, isn't she? I was surprised.
We were going to do a... Do you know what? I never got back to her. No, we were doing a Think and Tackle podcast, and Katie was going to come on with the other guys, and we arranged it, and we went straight into lockdown afterwards, and it just and like last year, just sort of everything just faded away, didn't it? I mean, am I making a convincing excuse for that?
It's not watching.
Yeah, no. She would be good, and we thought as well, Toad, didn't we? That it was important that we like to get a nice balanced podcast.
Yeah, it's good. There's so many women anglers out there now, and many of them haven't caught as many carp as some of the guys and stuff like that. But it's been shown and giving them the opportunity to get them into let's call it the limelight, the Korda limelight. So when women stumble across things to do with angling, they can see that there is women out there, giving them the visibility so that, it looks like it's a sport that, everybody can be attracted to and everybody can enjoy. Whereas if, they keep hiding the women away and, not showing that there's so many ladies now angling, then we're never going to encourage more people to do it. And the beast like Korda is perfect for doing that.
Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah, no,
it's exactly that. They should have the, the opportunity, like you said, seeing people like yourself in the limelight is really important, because it's like we spoke briefly about my dissertation before recording. It was an argument that I made is you will never know if there are people that aren't in the limelight or even considering to pick it up, who might one day make something of it.
Yeah.
And they need that example. As you know, if you go to any fella and stuff like that, they say, oh, I love Daryl got me into fishing, or Ali or Tom or Dubby.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, female anglers, they need that same inspiration. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's just somebody that they can relate to, and it's everybody relates to the sort of their own sex easier, don't they? You know, because it's just a natural thing to do. And yeah, there is some great anglers out there that have been angling years. Jo Green, for example, you know, she's caught some phenomenal fish. She's caught, you know, more big fish than, you know, most guys. Louise Bowers, people like that. But, you know, they've, and they don't want to be in the limelight, and they don't want to be, you know, putting stuff out there, because they just want to go about their angling. And we sort of made a stance at Carp-Talk that we were going to maybe push female catch reports, you know, to the front of the queue, essentially. You know, and the guys can argue all they want that, you know, that's not fair, it should be done on merit. Well, how do you put carp fishing on merit? Because all waters are different, and, you know, everybody's situation's different, and some people have got 1 hour a week and some people have got 100 hours a week. So you can argue that one till you're blue in the face, that won't wash. We just decided, you know, that we're going to make a bit of a stance. You know, Cray, Ben, Paul in the office, you know, we all sort of made sure that we highlighted all the catch reports that were coming through from women and gave it a bit of a push. And it grew from there, and we utilised social media for it and things like that. And this is a really interesting fact. We did a bit of thing, you know, putting women on the cover and stuff like that, and we could always analyse, you know, the sales, because it was quite a cool thing to do. And yeah, a smiley, lovely lady on the front cover will always outsell Ali Hamidi, Dave Lane, the Bearfield Common. Yeah, the Bearfield Common, you know, sorry
always.
Scott Lloyd, you know, all these guys,
No,
you know, they
good.
think you've caught the finest carp in the land, but you're not a happy female, are you?
Yeah.
It's true. You can imagine them stopping in like Tesco's, can't you? Go, hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
bet that
something
is
different.
exactly.
Fisher Bill used to do that as well, didn't they? I mean, they really and
But they used the
carpology,
boobs, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit more extreme.
Quite a
yeah,
bit
but-
more extreme.
Yeah. But
Yeah, those old solar adverts.
yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. I think, didn't Eric Sanglin do some? They had cheeky headlines with them as well, and I think they got a lot of complaints about those.
Yeah.
And I get that, you know, and I get, you know, people being offended by it, and it's kids seeing it as well, you know. Carp-Talk was sort of read by all ages, and you don't really want kids seeing stuff like that, do you? It's
No.
not great, but I've always been able to see the funny side of stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you've got to, haven't you? I used to kart race when I was younger,
Yeah.
and the only females that were actually doing kart were all really good drivers. They weren't back markers, because they had to be strong enough in the first place to be able to get through all of that.
Through it,
get
and
through all of that
yeah,
stuff.
all the, you know, the sort of side looks and the banter, and, you know, what people say is banter, but is actually sort of digging you out and questioning you and stuff like that. It wasn't easy. When I first came into the fishing industry, there was very sort of few women that worked in the fishing industry, and some of the things that sort of happened back in the early days, and, you know, some of the stuff that some of the old boys said to me, I mean, I won't call him out on who it was because he's no longer in the industry, thankfully, but it was a right nasty piece of work. I remember having an argument on the phone with him one day about, you know, him earning his money, and he actually turned around to me and said, "What do you know? You're a woman." You're just like,
Come on.
what's that got to do with the fact that you owe me money? That's exactly what I know. You owe me money,
Yeah.
my company money.
I bet you've learnt to stand your own, though, haven't you, against guys like that?
Yeah, my dad was a pretty tough cookie when it came to that as well. And I think, you know, going into any business, and I was young, I was hungry, I was passionate about it, and I wanted to put my own stamp on it, and I wanted to get involved, and I wanted to know all the ins and outs of it. And my dad never gave me, you know, the easy way in. The first job I had to do was chase age debtors, ringing money in. I mean, not an easy job. Anybody that's ever sort of, you know, chased debtors in.
Oh, God.
You can imagine doing it in the carp fishing industry, and a lot of them were tackle shops. I mean, tackle shops are notorious for not paying their bills.
Did you hear some good excuses as well?
I've had them all. I
Yeah.
had them all.
That's what I used to do downstairs before I went to uni.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You hear some great excuses.
It's wononderful.
Do you know what my favourite one was?
Go on then.
Sorry, mate, I was on holiday. Oh, so you paid to go away on holiday? Got loads of money to do that.
But you can't pay your bills.
Exactly. Yeah, that was always my favourite.
before we go any further, okay, because we're getting to all this stuff later on in the show, have you got a nice gift for us, Bev?
I have. Well, it's a gift with 3 parts to it, but they all tie together.
Right, okay.
So this gift, it's actually quite sentimental. I went through sort of a few thought processes. I was going to think something to do with the mags. I was going to think something to do with my dad. And then I thought, well, no, let's actually look at, you know, the ladies kind of side of things and, you know, bring something to do with that. So what I've brought is a few bits of memorabilia from the first ever Women's World Cup, which was 2019 in France. So it was groundbreaking, you know, to actually have 5 countries competing on the world stage under the official FIPS banner was pretty, you know, something pretty special for women's angling. So yeah, I've bought a few bits from that. So
right, okay, let's see what we've got.
We've got my number tab.
Oh, right, okay. So this is, yeah, do you want to see that tape?
Yeah, hold that
There we
up.
go.
The commemorative mug that the French did.
Oh, lovely.
I mean, I think the French design's a little bit behind ours, but you find that with quite a lot of the European angling side of things, don't you?
Yeah, but
It's not quite one of those super cool carpy mugs, is it?
Yeah. Okay. What's that? The Alps? Sorry, where was the venue?
So, don't make me pronounce
All right,
it.
no, we won't get you to pronounce
Villeneuve de la Rahu, I think.
Yeah, Coupe de la Monde.
Yeah, Villeneuve. Villeneuve.
Oh, Villeneuve.
Villeneuve. So it was in south of France.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of like a big like public lake on a campsite, and it had a little dammed bit, and then it just had a massive. I mean, it was huge. You could, I think, about 4 or 5 miles all the way around it. Me and Husey went for a run every morning around it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, just one of those big French public waters.
So it's quite evenly pegged out. Was it you know, fairly consistent, that lake?
No, not at all.
Oh God,
not at all.
You always hear that in these matches, don't you?
Yeah.
Like,
so me and Ellen, who I fished with, we ended up right at the far end of the lake in this corner peg, and Ellen she's a mega caster. She was fishing at 35 wraps for the full thing.
Was she? Wow.
Yeah. She's absolutely phenomenal. And we just had the shittest peg. Even when we'd done like laps, you know, looking, saying that is going to be the worst peg in the lake, that is going to be the worst peg in the lake. And we ended up in there, and it was like she was so wasted in there, because if you'd have put her in some of the other pegs, more fancied pegs, especially there was like a couple that were like on points, she'd have been absolutely hammering it out there and just picking off, because that was the key to some of the other
the
sort
fish
of
were
sections.
long range, were they?
Yeah. And the further you could get out, the further it would be. Whereas we were just like in this corner. So if the fish weren't there, you weren't picking them up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit wasted.
Oh, that is wasted. Yeah.
And
the third part, yeah.
Oh, very
Oh, nice. Oh, that's really nice, Bev. Thanks for donating that. Yeah, that's lovely.
So yeah, that was my bit of memorabilia.
It's a good time to throw that up as well.
Yeah.
With the manager in the middle there.
There he is.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I mean, social media is great, isn't it? You know, you put it up and it's like...
Cool, you all look a bit serious there, Bev, is right, don't
well,
you?
we have to do game face. Rob makes us
It's
do
like,
game face.
Yeah, we mean bloody business here, don't
he says,
we?
you know, don't show that you're soft is. And everybody goes, that's not a woman in the middle.
I bet.
No shit, you know, it's Rob
no
Hughes
shit.
again.
No. But,
We are allowed to swear, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's too late now.
No, he gets told off for swearing nowadays, Bev, actually. But yeah.
Got to
But
try and be good, haven't you?
yeah, well, no.
There's Ellen on the right. She looks like she's having a nap.
So Rob,
She'll
lovely
kill
point
me.
there's always one with their eyes
kill
closed.
me.
Yeah. So Rob is like, girls, you need to look serious here. Is he into sort of psychology and all that stuff?
Yeah, he's really into stuff like that.
Yeah.
Rob's a mega cool, interesting guy, and I think the more you get to know Rob, the more you get to know sort of how what makes him tick and stuff like that. But like, you know, for us, we're representing our country there.
Yeah.
And you put that T-shirt on and you walk out there and it's like, yeah, I'm representing my country. There's no bigger deal in your sport than representing your country, and you don't want to give anything away.
Did you kind of did you appreciate the significance of that until you actually put that on? It's hard to imagine. So the point there was like 4 years later since we initially started Women's Carp Team England.
and we'd had 3 years of just going against the Welsh while the other countries were building their teams, getting enough women, to find enough women that want to compete at that level, that are capable of competing, and also to get the team together, manage the logistics. Some of these other countries do fantastically. They get fully funded. Some of them come in like kitted out buses, with the team name on the side. But for a lot of them, like our country, it's all self-funded and things like that. So it took a few years, for the other countries to build their teams. So I think we'd had that initial kind of build-up of feeling that wearing, you're wearing the St. George on your back. We'd had that for a few years, but still stepping out onto that world stage and thinking, I'm representing my country. But also for me, there was that feeling of making waves in fishing for women, for females, and there's something for kids to aspire to. Because when I was little, I grew up like watching Dean Macy, Sally Gunnell, sport was always on the TV. We played outside a lot, but you'd come in for your sandwiches and you'd come in for a drink, and it was always just some kind of sport that was left on the TV while everybody was in and out. And so you have that sort of, I don't know, that relationship to sport, and that watching people win and watching people win girls and things like that, I've always had that sort of that drive and that passion. I'd never really, got into sports at school. To be fair, I used to twag sports at school. I used to, they'd say, "You're doing swimming today," and I was a bit of a shit sometimes. No, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, you are. It's like, right. You can't make me.
Right.
Well, you can't. No. My dad, that's my dad. Whereas my mum, my mum was the complete opposite. Just get on at school, be really good. My dad was like, don't take any shit, speak your mind. Yeah. Be your own person. That one on one shoulder, one on the other.
Yeah.
And it's quite tough for females at school. Your body's changing and stuff like that, and then they're like telling you to get into a swimsuit at 14 in front of a load of guys that have got raging hormones. It's like, it's just never going to end well, is it? And I was just like, no, I'm not doing it. And came to cross country, and I'd be like sneaking off at the back going for fags in the bushes.
That's really funny, isn't it?
But as you get older, you start thinking, and stuff changes, and it was like, I look back now and I remember those times, like seeing Dean Macy and Sally Gunnell and Jonathan Edwards, long jumper and stuff like that on the TV, and that passion inside about winning, and it comes back, and putting that into angling and putting that into going out with those girls and Rob and fishing for your country. It's a pretty cool feeling. It's absolutely devastating when you don't win gold.
Yeah.
And it's everybody's like, oh yeah, you came second. It's not winning though, is it? It's
but
it's consolation prize.
so this well, it is, and it's you're the first loser. If you wanna,
exactly.
And I mean, my dad would always say, well, it's taking place. No, it's not. It's not. You want to win. And I guess being around someone like Rob, who he seems like a real motivator as well. It's like you want to win for him. He seems like that sort of guy.
Yeah, and Rob's invested so much time and effort, and Miranda that was in that picture as well. She was the driving force with Rob to getting the actual women's carp team started. She was fishing the BCSE matches and a few other sort of matches, and she was saying to Rob, she was like, we need a women's team. Rob was like, well, there can't be one. She was like, why can't there? And just challenging him. He's like, well, we've got to do this and we've got to do that, and we've got to get this approved. And she was like, well, let's do it. And Rob's like world's busiest person anyway, but she persistently pushed Rob, and they got it done. And I remember getting a phone call off her. I'd met her a few times, and there'd been some like women's socials, a few women getting together, and she was like, you're going to be in Carp Team England. And I'd fished matches and stuff, and in the past with my mate Jason, I'd always, we'd had a right good crack, and we'd done relatively okay, to be fair. And at the time I was so busy with the mags, and I was like, I don't know if I can. And she was like, no, it's not an option. All right then. And then that's it, you get invested in it, don't you? And it's like, well, yeah.
And then the rest of the girls in the team, how do you select the girls in the team?
So the first team, going back to when it was initially formed, was sort of Miranda basically like pulled people that she'd met, that she'd seen had been fishing matches. I think she did. I think there was a bit of a trials, if I remember rightly, and sort of pick the best squad about the people that were available, that had got a bit of match experience, or those that had done that style of fishing. Because, you know, there was plenty of women anglers out there, but not everybody is a match style angler. You know, some people are more laid back. Some people can't stand match fishing, can they? Some people don't have that competitive drive with it. They just want to fish for themselves, which, you know, it's understandable. So she sort of pulled a group together, and it went from there. And now we have trials every year, and you've got to meet certain criteria to even just train with the team. Then we've got a training squad, and then from the training squad we pick the team that fish the matches.
So is it a small percentage? How many people come to the trials?
So we implemented the trials properly 2019? Yeah, just before COVID hit, to be fair. And we make the current squad all do the trials again to make sure that, you know, that everything's on point, and just to put them through it, you know.
Yeah, you're not going to get too comfortable in this.
Yeah, you don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
And we must have been 20 plus. And to be fair, a few of the Team England guys came down, and we did it all officially, you know, clipboard, get them doing certain things so they had to be spotting at 25 wraps, I think we got them spotting consistently at 20 wraps, and then they had to be casting a baited rig 25, and then throwing stick in 25 as well.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't go to venues like, that and be fishing at 70 yards. It's just not going to happen.
And is all that kind of based on the type of venue that you're going to be fishing? I mean, so the type of fishing scenario that you're going to be...
You go into Europe and go onto the match scene, and, you know, the guys are fishing, you know, 170. You know, so if we want to go against, you know, I mean, the Russians, for example, they've got some phenomenal casters. The French, you know, they've got their girls already are at a great level. So we're under no illusion when the other countries start coming in that they will be good as well. Yeah. So, you know, we've started the whole thing. We can't be...
So was that the first Women's World Cup? Or?
So that's the first ever Women's World Cup. So to get it through to a World Champs, which is what the same as the men have every year, we had to have a World Cup first. And that it's something to do with FIPS and how they ratify things. I leave all that side of things to Rob, and he deals with it. It's often done in French as well, so I haven't got a clue. And there had to be, it's sort of like a qualifying event, and, you know, things like that. So that had to be the first ever Women's World Cup, and then you can have a World Champs.
When's the World Champs? Do you know?
It was meant to be in September last year.
Yeah,
and then COVID hit. Yeah. It was meant to be, and we were hosting it as well. We'd won the bid to host it.
Where was it?
We were going to have it at Linear across B1 and B2, because it's if we don't have it the first year, it will be too big for us to be host, because we just don't have those big venues. No. You know, you look at the venues where they host the guys on and stuff like that, and they're on either massive stretches of river or these big public venues. And we just don't have, you know, the places to accommodate them. So, and then fingers touch wood, might get it to happen this year.
Back at Linear?
Yeah, it'll still be at Linear.
Yeah.
Linear are really, really good to us. They let us go practice when we can. We can't just rock up, you know, whenever we want, but, you know, they always try.
Not at the moment, Bev.
No, they're certainly not going to be down there now.
Yeah, out the way, guys, out the way, yeah.
Coming through, could you imagine the hatred on social media?
Oh, that would be so funny, wouldn't it? Yeah. Turn up with your skier on and everything. Sorry, guys, yeah.
And the thing is as well, actually, because we're... a proper class, you know, as an official sports team, classified as an elite level sports team, we could have actually gone training and night fishing throughout lockdown. Could you imagine the actual hammer?
The animosity would have been...
Oh, you know, it's just, it won't even work. Because Rob actually said to us, you know, when we were all catching up, he was like, well, you do know, girls, it's like, nobody's going out and do that. Don't even contemplate it. It's not worth it.
No.
You know, play by the rules, and yeah, everybody's in the same situation, so we would never have done it anyway. But yeah, classed as an elite level sports team. So
yeah, I would love to see that. That would be so funny. And just and the predictable response that would occur after that as well. But so are you looking? So you think that, how much do you think it's going to grow in the next few years?
I mean, Rob's really in touch with that side of things, because he speaks to us, obviously all the other managers quite regularly, but like the Italians, the Americans, South Africans, you know, and a lot of the teams that dominate in the men's match scene are working hard to field their women's team.
Right.
Which, we've said, one, we need to get in there early. And host it at Linear, where, fingers again, touch wood, we should win before they take us over to their waters and completely, try and dust us up, because you've only got to see, the lads, the Team England lads, they've done really well, but you can never go up against, the people fishing on their own waters, because they can get there, they can practice, they know it, they know anything that works well there, they know any sort of going tactics, they know any going bait. That place was a prime example.
The French won it, did they?
Oh yeah, completely dusted us.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. What worked on there, and we almost didn't want to believe it, and we sort of put ourselves on the back foot, just trying to challenge this thing. Typical English, thinking that our bait's better and stuff like that. That the carp would prefer, good quality bait. The bait that worked well on there was this local tackle shop. Shitty, horrible yellow Scopex squid boilie. Scopex boilie, not Scopex squid, Scopex boilie. It was so dry, it was so rank. We wouldn't go fishing with it over here. You just wouldn't dream of doing anything with it. But you could put something that looked like it, something that smelt like it. You could try and imitate it as best you could, and it just wouldn't work like these bleeding boilies would. And
what were they? So you can't remember the name of them. Do you know
they just came in a clear bag. They were just like they were rolled.
Suspicious.
They were just rolled for the local tackle shops to sell. And I think just
rolled
for
them
this
around
venue.
the corner, mate.
Yeah. But everybody that we spoke to was like, "Oh, you just need to get them Scopex boilies from the tackle shop. That's what works well on here." And we were like, "Yeah, all right." So we used it a little bit, and they worked. Yeah, we've got better bait. Come on, we're England. We've got the best bait in the world.
Do you think it's because it was yellow? Because you don't see too much yellow bait around.
Yeah, but we tried replicating it with good quality bait that was yellow, and it just won't work.
That's weird, isn't it? We need to get some of that stuff. It might be like a real edge.
So I kept one.
Did you, right?
I kept one, as a bit of a memento. Don't ask me why. It's in my kitchen, that kitchen drawer that's just full of random items. And I keep seeing it and smelling it and thinking, I can't believe that. Not winning, it's still there. We should have won.
Yeah.
We could have beat the French. We could have beat them. We caught up in the end. We were close. And you just think, why the fuck did we not just buy them boilies?
It's easy to say in hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'd all be,
We always think we know better.
You can get your revenge this year, can't you? Hopefully.
Yeah.
So that'd be good. I mean, like
difficult though, because Linear, can you think of a venue that is better covered in carp fishing than Linear?
Everybody's got access to that, haven't they?
Everybody's got access to those videos. Must be more videos made on Linear than anywhere else. So they've all got access to that.
Yeah, so you need to get more practice in.
We need to get more practice in.
Yeah.
We need to be,
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll go ahead. Do you think it will do this year?
I think it all depends on how the other countries feel about travelling over here, because obviously for us it's pretty safe and things like that, but I think it all depends on where we're at. In the next few months, we've put the registration pack out for them, and we'll sort of gauge it from that. We'd like it to go ahead on the basis of we don't want it to grow too much that next year we won't be able to host it. It's to miss out on the chance on hosting something that we've been really sort of integral in creating it'd be gutting. So
no, it would. Hopefully you get your chance. I think you will. I mean, if we compare it to like last year, and where were we in September last year, we were in a better position than we are at the moment now. So so you obviously come from a carp fishing family, don't you? Your dad's Kevin Clifford, and
yes.
How many times have you been asked this?
And I think people expect me to sort of have some really cool, interesting story about like going fishing with my dad and when we was younger, but
here we go.
That's got to be quite an interesting story.
I'm sat in a fag box. You can't see the date, but it says July 1985. I'm 10 months old.
Jeez. And you didn't like it. I mean, you're crying there, Bev, as well. You were obviously a bit traumatised being
July,
in that box.
It's probably boiling hot. I mean, God knows what my dad's wearing. It looks like some kind of weird PVC.
That's what they used to wear, though, didn't they? In the middle of summer, wearing that. That is.
And I think, what you can't see, but he's given me a bunch of keys to play with. I mean, that's the Father and Masterclass by Kev Clifford right there. And I think I don't know if my mum had been called out to take pictures with him or whether he was meant to be babysitting me and he decided to take me fishing. Don't quite know what the story was.
So do you think that was that your first, that was your first fishing trip?
Well, we had ponds in the garden.
Right.
So it was, I don't know, I have no idea what my first fishing trip was. But as I grew up, I have vivid memories of getting dragged out of bed, or would be eating tea and my mum would get a phone call from my dad and it'd be, I've caught a fish, will you come and take a picture? Or I've forgotten my rods, can you bring my rods to the lake? Or we'd just be dragged off somewhere to
Where was your dad
at the lake.
fishing mainly then?
There'd always be Tyler, was round the corner from us, places.
That was quite a venue in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool water.
Yeah.
I sometimes take the dog down there now.
I remember reading Julian's, he used to write a bit about that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Back in the day, didn't he?
Yeah, he fished it quite a bit. I don't know if there's any carp still in there. Somebody was asking me the other week actually, and I said I'd do it. And I always try and do a bit of digging. I asked my dad, and I'm sure my dad knows, but my dad is the most secretive person going. Unbelievably secretive. Like still now it's just like inbred into him. And
we were talking to him, we went into maybe we shouldn't say this on it. I showed you some pictures in Damien's office.
Oh, you'll love that.
And, well,
probably not meant to be in there.
Yeah, the P45 is on the way.
You've had a few of them now, haven't you?
I've got a rig named after me now, the P45 rig, you know, so yeah.
You are going to have to rename that rig, by the way. That's what everybody's called it.
The P45 rig?
Yeah.
That's got a new name.
I like the thriller rig.
No, it's the P45 rig now, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a bit more of a ring to it.
He's
It's more
quick though, isn't he?
unique,
He
isn't
comes
it?
straight out of it, straight away, didn't he? He's too fast for me.
Yeah.
He's too quick. But you know when you borrowed a pound out of your dad's pound or £2 jar tote?
Yeah,
yeah,
that... I told him one night, I think we'd had a late podcast night and stuff like that, and I needed a drink or something at the vending machine. And I had no change on me at all. And he's got like, he just put his spare change. And for him, spare change is a pound.
A swear jar.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot more full than that.
That's a barrel.
Yeah.
And I just nicked £1 out of it. And I thought, I usually phone him after work and stuff anyway. I said, oh, by the way, mate, I nicked £1 out your jar for a packet of M&Ms. He went, don't do that again. I went, oh, no worries, mate. He went, don't do that again.
It's been deadly serious.
It's been deadly serious. So next week, I took £2 out of it.
If he listening to that now, Toby. But your dad's sort of similar. You were saying about when you take something and he...
So, I mean, my dad's is ridiculous for, like, boys' toys, so, like, saws, ride-on tractors, drills, like, anything to do with, like, just man stuff. He's got it all. So if you ever need to borrow anything, my dad's the person to ask. So me and my brother will ask to like borrow, can you borrow a drill, or can you borrow this, or can you borrow a saw? And you'll borrow it and always give it back. But then he'll come through to you and he'll be like, and he's got this little book and he writes them down what you've borrowed. And he came through and he was like,
a little black book. Yeah.
And he was like, have you got my so-and-so that you borrowed?
And you borrowed it on what date?
Yeah. I'm like, no, I've not got it, mate. And he's like, well, you have. It says you borrowed it. Like, I brought it back. And he's like, well, I can't find it. My dad is not organised, so he's never going to find it.
What about your mum with all this, and where does she fit into this? Is she...
So, do you know what? The story between my mum and dad's quite cool, actually. So, they met through my mum's brother, but she was sort of, when they met and when they were first together, my dad used to net fishing ponds for a living. That was part of his sort of income, and she used to go with him. Like, their weekends were spent netting ponds. I think they decided, he never proposed, my dad is the least romantic person ever. They decided to get married when they were out on a boat on Hornsey Mere, pike fishing, middle of winter, and they were just like, should we get married? It's like, yeah. But she used to go fishing with him quite a lot. She did a bit of fishing, but she just used to enjoy being by the water, being outdoors. And then when they came to getting a place together, my dad wanted somewhere with a pond, so they got a house and needed a bit of work. But they've spent a lifetime sort of doing this house up and, making it beautiful. And it's somewhere that I felt really privileged and lucky to still be going back to every day when we had the magazines, because the offices were in my dad's garden. And every day I'd pull round into the garden and it's sort of got lovely trees, plants, flowers, And I never knew until I think it was last year that my dad had actually been the person that had planted a lot of the trees and bushes. I always assumed it was my mum, and that was my mum's doing. And maybe that's, you know, quite naive to think that, you know, my dad that did it. And she was like, no, it was your dad that planted all those. And it looks absolutely beautiful when you pull around.
Yeah.
And my dad's really like, he's not a massively chatty person, my dad. His social skills aren't that great. And you'll try to speak to him and just be like, yeah.
I like that though, don't you? You know, because these people, you know, you have to like pull back the layers a little bit to actually. It's
really difficult to pull back the layers, and it's for years I never really knew him, because as we were growing up, he was working really, really hard in the business, and although again the offices were in the garden, it was sort of, we'd left for school. My dad's a late riser and an early works late. He's not a morning person. We'd have gone to school before he got up, and then he'd be in the office till late on a night. So I didn't really see him much when we were growing up. So I didn't really get to know my dad until I worked in the business. And then we were both pretty strong-minded, and I was quite fiery when I was younger, and we spent most of it arguing. And then as he's mellowed and I've mellowed, we've got to know each other a lot more. Yeah. But he's such an unusual character. But he's really hard to peel the layers back off. And he's not like, you know, like other anglers love telling stories. He's not a massive storyteller. And my other half, Tom, always says, we need to get him to do something. He needs to do like a podcast or a film or something in angling and tell some of these stories before they go missing forever. And I'm like, yeah, but he just won't talk about stuff. He's just...
I haven't seen very much. There was a book, a history... book on,
history of carp fishing.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
But it's not about his story. No. It's literally the history of carp fishing from the early years. It's like some kind of obscure thesis on carp fishing. You know, if anybody wants to geek out on the history of carp fishing, that is the book to do. And like, you get sort of people that have come into it and they've cherry-picked stories that they've heard of people at certain lakes, you know, about the origins of carp and stuff like that. And sometimes you hear them and you think, where have you got that from? I mean, that's just like, you know, complete hearsay. It's like, just read that book and find out the facts. It sounds an obsessional bit of work. That the amount of hours that he put into that book is frightening.
Yeah, I saw him going through all these archive stuff, and it's like, but that's his thing, is it? It's digging out old history and reading. Is he a big reader?
My whole family are really, really sort of like intellectual, intelligent, you know, even like my dad's sister and like that side of the family, they're just intellectual people. And I'm just like, I just feel so stupid when I'm sat with them all, because they just remember facts and obscure things, and they know about like, even just like remembering film facts and, you know, books that were written. And my brain doesn't work like, I think I partied too much and they went down that path. I mean, that's not being too ignorant with it. No, it's nice. It's definitely great to have an interest in history, and I would love to be able to. I do read a few. I do. I mean, I've probably got through half a dozen books this year so far, mainly audiobooks actually. Yeah.
But my recall is like really, really bad. You know, I think the important facts stay there, but the you know, the nitty gritty, you know, of it never stays there.
No, and I think people have different types of memory, don't they? That's proven.
Selective memory, isn't it?
Mine's selective, yeah.
Or if other things have kind of altered your memory a little bit, it might be.
Well, I think we've only got so much storage space, haven't we? We're like a hard drive.
Exactly.
And
that's the excuse.
That's my excuse, yeah. And somebody didn't invest in one of the newer hard drives for me. I was one of the early hard drives that, you know, and he had about early 250. 80s. Yeah, I'm like one of the little dongles that you carry around with you. Whereas my dad's like one of these like 2 terabyte kind of things.
Yeah. Which one would you? No, but honestly, like now, which one would you rather be? Would you rather, you know, be able to recall everything and be a stickler for that, or do what you do now?
Sometimes I get really frustrated with myself that I don't have that memory, but then I think that's just not me. You can't change the person you are, can you? And you know, I enjoy just.
But you seem like
being proactive, getting stuff done.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, you're the captain of that team as well, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm the manager now. I was the captain. Miranda, who was the manager, decided she would like to get back on the rods, and she wasn't enjoying the managing side of things. And myself, Miranda, and Rob had a bit of a chat. And yeah, I said I would manage the team and push things forward. And I think I'm not saying I could manage big business or anything like that, but managing small things like that, I really enjoy it. Driving things forward and pushing things forward, and especially the women's side of the sport. It's something I've got so much passion for, and somebody's got to do these things, and I've been lucky enough to be in a position that we had the magazine and I've got the right connections, so I feel like I sort of should do it. I'd be doing a bit of an injustice. My dad did his thing within the sport, and he's documented the history, and he was there in the early days pioneering with some of those guys, and he's put a lot back. Some people will not put back into an industry without taking from it, and fair enough, business people, and then there's also people that just want to enjoy the sport for themselves. Again, fair enough, you can't knock it, but I always think it's nice to put something back, and my dad's done that with the history side of things, and I think I've got the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to do it,
Cool. The Clifford family are leaving a carp fishing legacy, aren't they? Without, I know not necessarily doing it for that, but you are, aren't you? Because the carp. What other, for people that are listening and watching, what other magazines, publications did your dad get involved with?
So the originally, I think the first one they did was Big Fish World. That never really worked out. It wasn't specific enough. That spezzy kind of thing, just there isn't a big enough market.
What was this, like 80s?
So I think that would have been, was that before Carp World or around the same type as Carp World? So it would have been really early 90s, I think. It might have been late 80s. That maybe lasted a year or two, and then I think Carp World set up, and my dad was involved with that behind the scenes. Obviously Tim set that up with a few others. Then Carp-Talk came about in 1994. Then there was a whole host of other carp mags that followed that we were involved with. Then he set up Pike and Predators with a guy called James Holgate, who he avid angler in the predator side of things, and was a really, really nice bloke. Actually, I really, really enjoyed working with him. And he was sadly taken from us at, I think he was in the early 40s, maybe 45. And it was really, really sad. It really got to me, that. I'd really enjoyed working with him. Like a lot of sort of those proper spezzy guys seem to be really sort of insular, sort of quite reserved guys. But when you when you peeled him back, he was a really, really nice guy. And then they did Course Angling Today as well, which was a proper spezzy, like big barbel, big roach, big everything kind of magazine, but they were only ever sort of smaller circulation mags. Carp-Talk was the big beast
that was the baby,
the wheels
wasn't it?
Turning.
That was. I mean, we had the Angling Times and the Angler's Mail, but we didn't have a weekly carp fishing magazine. You said that came out in 94.
June 1994. I was.
Yeah, I remember.
Nearly 10.
Yeah.
I remember.
So were you taking an interest in that stuff then?
Yeah, because I always used to want to earn pocket money as well. So my dad would find me jobs in the office. So I remember back in the day, the magazine, when you send a magazine to print, it'd go on what was it was like a film. Don't ask me the technical names again. Can't remember things like that. But it was like a film, and if it was a full colour page, so it was only at the time when it first started, there was only the cover that was full colour. So they'd have 4 layers of film, and that was how they built it up to make the colours. And then everything that was black and white had 2 sheets. And because obviously there was a lot of repeat adverts and stuff like that, it was like a massively costly process back in the day, before everything went digital. And my dad actually bought all the stuff to output this film. So we used to output all the pages, output all the adverts. And every week you'd need to save money, we'd recycle the adverts. So you'd have to, and they'd come back, these sheets, and they'd be the size of this table. And I think, so you must have had 16 on, because it's 16 on a plate. And and I'd peel all the adverts off, and they all used to go in an envelope, and then they'd go in a filing cabinet, and that was one of my jobs for earning pocket money. Then we'd paint the offices because the business was expanding, so child labour. I was quite good at that. Me and my brother would paint the offices for pocket money. One of the best ones that I used to do was when it was summer holidays, I'd go into the office and ask any of the staff if they wanted the cars cleaning. And some of them would be like, so there was one guy that worked for us, Paddy Webb. A lot of people might know Paddy from back in the day because he did a fair bit of angling. Paddy was quite tight, so he'd give me £1. And Crow, to be fair, I think he'd have it done a few times, it'd be a £5. Tim Paisley, he always had big cars, but Tim was generous. He kept 20 quid, and he always had one of these big cars that had like a big money thing in the 20 quid doesn't sound a lot now, does it? Can you imagine when he was like,
that's a lot of money.
It was a hell of a lot of money.
It's generous.
It was a massive amount of money.
Oh, fair
and he
play,
had like the little like slot in the middle, which had loose change in it, and I could sort it out, and anything under 50p I could have. And sometimes I'd add up to like another like 5-10 quid. So it's always like looking for ways to earn money. So I was always in and out of that office.
So you were working. So the premises were at home.
Premises were at home.
And how many people were working there?
I think by the time I joined and we grew a little bit more and things diversified a bit, I think we peaked out at 13 people on the payroll. Then there was like me and my dad. So there's like 15 of us. And funnily enough, me and my brother have been talking about stuff now as we've like wrapped everything up. And just like we're sitting it now, we're clearing it out. It's like, do you remember when there was all these people in here? And it was like, it was like a hustle and bustle, and there was phones ringing and it was chatter, and now there's just me and my brother rattling around in it.
That must be really sad.
It is sad. And I look back and there was some brilliant times, and I learned so much, and we had such good laughs. But everything's got, a lifeline, and, everything changes, and we were under no illusion that if we didn't diversify some point to go digital, then it wasn't going to last forever. And we made the decision that we weren't going to, because it would have, come with a lot of investment, retraining and stuff like that. And, we'd made the decision that, we'd see it out till the end of its days, and then, move on to do other things ourselves.
How would you recognise it when it came to the end of its life then?
Paper price increases.
Yeah.
The cost of paper price just drove the cost of printing up. It's what's killed a lot of magazines, not just in the fishing industry.
How much would you have needed to put the price of the magazine up by, do you think?
So I think in our last 2 years of Carp-Talk, I think we had in the space of about 5 months, we had 3 paper price increases. And then the year prior to that, we saw out another 3. So to sustain it, we'd have had to put Carp-Talk up to like £4. You can't charge that for like a monthly mag. It's just ridiculous.
No, what a shame. Yeah, no, I mean, but it hasn't really moved into digital as seamlessly as
I mean, digital's amazing, isn't it? But everything's so diluted in digital. Like, unless somebody put the concept of Carp-Talk into just one website and released all the news on the same day, it's never going to have the same effect. And we built Carp-Talk on 25 years of people reporting news to us. In the early days, Chris Ball actually used to go drive to some of the lakes to get those catch reports, because people didn't want to give catch reports to some unknown business.
No one had mobile phones in the early 90s either,
and
did
they were all super secret squirrels. So it was it was hard at first. The guys had a really hard time. And for somebody to build that again, one, would be hard. And also, how do you charge for something digital? How do you, say, right, you need to give us £2 every week to be able to get this news? People just won't pay that. They were, I read, stories on the Telegraph and the Times, and every time you go to read the story, it's asking for, to pay the subscription to sign up. People just don't pay it. It's just people expect everything in digital to be free.
Are you surprised with there's an influx of carp fishing digital media coming out at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it started with topography really, and it's. Are you surprised that that's expanding like that? Do you think it can get that? There could be too much of it.
What'll happen is what will exactly happen with the magazines. More and more will get released. And then, obviously, the people have only got so much disposable income to spend on things like that. And a lot of, as we were discussing before the podcast started, a lot of anglers are, working class. And it won't sustain all of them. You know, they'll get to be like 10 or 12. You know, at one point there was so many mags, and it was never going to be sustainable. And then it will just dilute the pot for the existing ones, the ones that were there from the beginning, and then it will be the strongest will survive kind of thing, because people won't pay for them all. You know,
I mean, you had a unique niche there, didn't you? With
Carp-Talk was different. We were
yeah.
never sort of, we were never battling against the monthlies, and we were never in direct competition really with the Times or the Angling Times or the Angler's Mail, because they didn't just do carp. Carp-Talk was sort of on its own, and that worked to our advantage massively. You know, and nobody ever came along and tried to do the same again, because it would have been hard to come along as a you know, as a late starter and get that news. You know, we'd built so many relationships with fisheries, with people. You know, people were so, and one of the things I love about carp fishing is the loyalty of some people. You know, people are really, really loyal in carp fishing, and we've built up some great loyalties with people with Carp-Talk, and majority of them are really loyal and would continually send us their catch reports. And you know, we'd look after them, and you know, we'd make sure, you know, we wrote nice things about them, and you know, gave them a bit of love. And when guys were trying to get noticed, you know, to pick up sponsorship deals and stuff like that, we could help them. You know, we could help them by giving them good coverage. And we'd often get, you know, in the later years when more and more companies were looking for sponsored anglers, the amount of times I'd be sat discussing advertising, and they'd be like, oh, have you got any names you could put forward? You know, who's doing well? You know, any guys that you know? And I'd always think, you know, that, yeah, there's a handful of guys I know that I've been speaking to, young lads that have, you know, that present themselves well, that, you know, they're taking time to effort to make sure they can write up the catch reports well, you know, they can take photos. And we'd get, you know, lads coming to us saying, how do I get sponsored? Be like, right, so make sure you can take a good photo, you know, you put yourself out there well on social media, don't get involved with arguments, you know, make sure you can write and string a sentence together, work on all those skills. And that makes you more desirable for a company to pick up. You know, it's not just about being able to catch the carp. No. You know, that's part of it. Yeah, you need to go out there and catch the carp, but you know, you could be the best carp catcher. We can all think of one, you know, prime example in angling is a phenomenal carp angler, but his social skills and the way he presents himself in angling have cost him what could have been a really lucrative, you know, sponsorship over the years.
No, definitely. You've had such a big influence, though, haven't you? Because you forget that, don't you? It's a publication that pretty much everyone used to buy, you know, at the time. But that the difference that you've made to people's lives potentially by giving them those opportunities as well is you must have had some crazy stories as well along over the years.
You forget them. Crow's far better at remembering them than us. But yeah, I mean, I think Pecky sort of credits Carp-Talk to sort of him building, you know, a profile for himself and getting noticed. And there's been loads of cases like that, and it's lovely to see when, you know, when they remember that and stuff like that. And I mean, some of the best stories are some of the haters, you know. But one of my favourite stories, and this isn't going to name any names because there's so many people that have done it, but we'd get this so often, and somebody would send a catch report in, and we would always print, you know, what was on the catch report. So we'd sometimes, you know, try, if it was an obvious typo, we would obviously correct it. You know, the amount of people that had caught them on, you know, the amount of people that spelled Korda wrong, and autocorrect was the best one. When autocorrect on phones came in, some of the stuff that we get was priceless. Yeah. But people had obviously mistyped the weight of their fish. But we would obviously just print it, you know, because you can sometimes tell, oh, that's not a 40, but sometimes they're not holding it great, or you don't know how big the person or small the person is, so it can be deceiving. And then they'd ring up, oh, you've misprinted my catch report, everybody in the lake's giving me shit, you've put it as a 30, you've put it as a 40 and it was 30 something. So like, oh God, you know, and we'd always apologise at first, customers always right at the end, they'd be like, right, dig out that catch report. Like, ringing back up, yeah, sorry mate, you've put it on your catch report. Can you pin a retraction on? My mate's giving me shit. Oh, yeah, we can do. I mean, it's not our fault, but yeah. Yeah. But they'd straight away, you know, be having it off at you. Oh, you've done this, you've done that. Actually, it's there in black and white on your catch report. Should we send you a picture?
You were talking to Jamie about that, because I think Jamie said, you know, what about people doing the digital stuff and being self-sufficient, where people send in their own pictures and their own, and they write up. But it's just, the quality control of that would just go completely out the window, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that, I think when I was talking about it with Jamie, he was saying, didn't you ever think about digitalising it and just like automating it? It's like, we prided ourselves, and as magazine publishers and as any professional business does, when you put content out there, you want to make sure it's as factually correct as possible, and also, you know, in the media world, you can set yourself up for libel if it's not. So there was always that, and also we had guys that had an interest in the English language, you know, so we always tried to do a good a job as possible and make sure it was in good standard of English. If we just put auto upload on those catch reports, I wouldn't be able to understand some of them, you know, so it wouldn't make for very good reading, and it wouldn't represent our sport very well.
Yeah. No, better off staying away from that. But yeah, did you? I mean, growing up, I mean, were you a girl's girl, or were you like a tomboy growing up then?
So I think if you look back to my younger years, I was definitely a tomboy. I tried to be a girly girl, and I think.
Sorry, you said you had a sister as well.
No, I've got a younger brother.
Right. Okay.
Me and my brother were always out in the garden. There was ponds, there was mud. I was lucky enough to have horses. Everything was outside, and even, you know, going playing around at my granddad's. My granddad used to live in a little village, and they had an old World War fort in the village, and it was disused at the time. So we used to go off on weekends, you know, just like playing in the mud and looking for. They used to do paintballing around there, and we used to, like, I don't know why, collected up empty paintball cartridges and stuff like that. And just outdoor stuff, just generally been muddy. I mean, Mum's got pictures of me laid on the kitchen floor, and like I've got, you know, a little like pink corduroy suit on, but it's grey. I'm just filthy. Like all my pictures, you know, you see pictures now. All my friends, you know, got lovely pictures of the kids and stuff like that, and all the girls are there in lovely little flowery outfits, and I was just always grubby. And I think I genuinely was a bit tomboyish. And then, you know, you get to that age at school when you may be trying to fit in, and, you know, and I think I did. And I think sometimes I do try, you know, to be a girly girl, and I'm just not. You know, I am happiest when I'm outside, not a care in the world. And I think as a girl you feel, and this is brought on by media, and I grew up in the era of magazines, and I read Vogue and, you know, all those magazines, and I love fashion. I love how it's presented. I love the design element to it, but that pressure that puts on women and young girls especially, and it did in my era, to be a certain way and look a certain way is frightening. And I think I fell foul of that, and felt like I felt like I had to be a certain way to be accepted. I felt like I had to be a certain size to be accepted.
So you were dieting and
I mean, I've told enough people I struggled with an eating disorder. My early 20s I struggled with drink, drugs, eating disorder, and I think I was really lost in the world. Why
do you think it was? When you get older, you sort of look back at that stuff, and
I think it's a really hard time. You're finding your feet in the world. You don't quite know. You've done education, you've come out of that system. I found education quite hard. I didn't like the way you were sort of spoken to. I didn't like the way you were meant to. I didn't find education was a true reflection of the working world when you got out there. Maybe it is in some other aspects, but in carp fishing, it's certainly, you know, the education system had no bearing on, you know, the carp fishing industry. And I was working in it, and I think it's very male dominated, and I think I was just struggling to, and I think I felt that if I looked a certain way it would be easy to be accepted, which it couldn't be more further from the truth. You know, carp fishing is the least, you know, the industry that's probably least going to be looking at how a woman looks for her to be accepted. But it was just sort of inbuilt into me, into all this media.
How old were you when this stuff started?
Not long after my 21st birthday, I think.
So you were a grown adult, and you've been working in a male dominated world, and so you think that was a contributing factor then? No,
the contributing factor was that I was reading fashion magazines, looking at that industry, the beauty industry, and it was all, you need to be a certain way because that's beautiful. And I think as you feel grown up at that age and you think you're grown up, but you're not. And I always remember Pip and Jemima, who were Tim Paisley's stepdaughters. I always sort of looked up to them, and I worked with them closely. We had the show together, and I always remember they used to say to me, you'll get a lot more comfortable as you get older, you'll learn to be a lot more accepting in your own skin. And I always remember Jemima saying to me, I mean, this was a few years later, but she said to me one of our fishing trips, she was like, wait till you get to your 30s, Cliffy, it's a lot fucking easier, girl.
And you found that?
It is a lot easier. And do you know what, I don't think I've still always got that thing in my head from, you know, reading those magazines and being influenced by that, you know, that you have to look a certain way to be beautiful. But the mad thing is, you look at your friends and you don't assess your friends in that way. The beauty is the person that they are. You know, beauty isn't how somebody looks. Beauty is how a person is and their personality and, you know, time spent with that person and, you know, having a laugh with that person. But I just got trapped in that world, and it was...
Are you self-conscious at the time as well? You know, when you start, you know, having sort of, bad habits, and, you know, are you thinking to yourself at the time, do you know what, you know, I'm doing this for a reason, or is it only when... Yeah,
and I think it's a massive thing, you know, anybody that's had sort of eating disorders or drink and drug problems, a lot of it's a control thing as well. Like, you're in control of that aspect of your life. Like... You're not in control of like the rest of your life. You know, sometimes you can't control whether you win or lose a job, or, you know, there's so many things in life that you can't control. You're in the world and you're on, you know, the path, and yeah, you can control aspects of it, but, you know, with you know, the eating disorder, I could control that. I was 100% in control. And it's a horrible world, that. And I look back on it now and I think, yeah, I learned a lot from it, and it's made me the person I am today. And you never get rid of it. And I think that control thing comes with being a bit of an OCD organised person as well. It's just one of those traits. Again, an addictive personality, you know, that's the drink and the drugs thing. And there's something, you know, that it's something in your brain that you know, you often find people that have had drink problems, have had drug problems, and have maybe had, you know, other problems, and they're all, I think there's been studies done, isn't it, that it's a certain part of your brain, and that you often go down that path. And some people, you know, they don't win the battles with it, do they? But
it's scary as well, because a lot of that stuff you can attribute to growing up and, you know, families and the people that you're closest to when you're younger, but for you it sounds like growing up was pretty idyllic, and you know, you had a good upbringing.
I had a perfect, it was massively supportive family. None of my friends went down that path. And it's you know, that's a really sad thing to say, that, you know, I didn't have a bad experience that led me to it. I didn't have, you know, other friends that, you know, were drinking heavily or were, you know, had a drug problem, or, you know, I had nobody around me that I'd ever known that had an eating disorder. And I had a really secure job. I was working in the family business, you know, that was thriving. You know, my dad was letting me do more and more. I was putting my own stamp on it. You know, you could look on it and be like, you had the perfect life. And I look back now and I think, well, actually, yeah, it was pretty ungrateful to be doing all those other things, you know.
Because I've heard you speaking as well about, I mean, it sounded like you enjoyed yourself in your 20s as well. You went out and you like your clubbing and
I was lucky, you know, I had a good job, you know, good disposable income. I could, you know, go off clubbing, go into Ibiza, living. Yeah, I was essentially living the young person's dream.
Do you think you really were happy though?
No, I wasn't, was I? Because I was, you know...
Yeah, because of the...
Yeah. And I think a lot of, you know, sometimes you're masking that. And I look back now and I think what I lacked was a bloody hobby. And I was using partying as a hobby, but partying's not a hobby really, is it? It's a pretty dangerous hobby.
You burn out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not great for you.
Burn out brain cells if you're taking the right stuff.
That's why I've not got the memory that the rest of my family have done.
Right, okay.
It is why, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. But you've come out the other side of that anyway, and it takes that experience, doesn't it, to
and I think if you can take, everybody has bad experiences, and, you know, nobody's perfect. And if you can take things from those experiences, you know, there's a lot of anglers that say, you know, catfishing saved them. You know, they'd been going down, you know, doing dodgy things. You know, there's a fair few anglers I know that have been in prison. You know, and they say when they got out, it was catfishing that kept them on a straight and narrow. And it's having a hobby that's something that dedicates you that time, so you don't slip back into, you know, old bad habits. Because sometimes what you know is safest, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think maybe if I'd have tried to pick up a hobby earlier on, I maybe wouldn't have, you know, ended up in that dark place. And it is a pretty dark place.
Yeah.
I had some amazing supportive people around me. My best friend, you know, if it wasn't for something she'd said to me, I would never have sort of realised that I needed to go. I would never have admitted that I would go get help with an eating disorder. You know, she said something to me, and she'd not long had my godson, and we were sat on the sofa, and she turned around and said to me, she said, I've seen you and I know you, and I've been lucky to have you in my life, but if you don't sort this out, Jack's never going to know you.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that hit home.
Yeah, I bet.
And there'd been, you know, I'd had my mum in tears on me. You know, I'd seen it, you know, breaking my mum, breaking my best friend, breaking my dad, and there's just something there, you know, blocking it. But when she said that, I was like, shit.
So what did you do when you heard that?
Said to my mum I'd go for an appointment with the doctors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then went to see a therapist. And therapists are weird. We never actually spoke about that. We spoke about a whole host of other things, and I think they're probably wanting to discover where you know, you've had some traumatic experience, which I didn't have really any traumatic experiences to, you know, to attribute it to. But we spoke about a load of stuff, you know, over months, and eventually, you know, you start coming out the other side and, you know, putting things in place to deal with it. And
I'm trained in solution-based therapy, so
yeah, you said about
you know, so rather than going through all this regression stuff, which, you know, there is a need to do that at times, but for a lot of people, it's this type of therapy. You're looking to what you want to be doing in the future, and you know, and sometimes on an hour-by-hour basis, and gradually building yourself up. But that type of therapy can be, you know, more productive. Really, it can, you know, in the right situation.
Yeah, because I mean, again, you know, you can look back at things, can't you? And especially if you know, some people have had really, you know, are dealing with really bad trauma. Maybe they will discuss it when the time's right. But, you know, going through therapy, you're trying to get out of that, aren't you? So do you really want to be revisiting bad times, you know, every time you go over it with your therapist?
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be good.
And it opens up rabbit holes everywhere then as well, because you're once you get back to one thing, if there's an initial sensitizing event, that's what you call it, into an event that causes something, that's great. You need to address that. But if it's not, you're just going off on tangents everywhere. You're always looking back to try and find what the source of the problem is.
Well, yeah, and you may be looking for one thing that doesn't exist.
And you can be looking forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's triggered it. You know, it's just sometimes things have happened, and you've just got to, you know, work them out, haven't you? And everybody's, you know, everybody's dealt with something in their lifetime, you know, and as you get older, you go through more things, and whether it's, you know, losing somebody close to you or, you know, things like that, and everybody deals with things differently, and everything affects everybody differently. But everybody's always looking for, you know, like the quick solution, or, you know, that there's a way to a specific way to deal with a certain thing, and there isn't, because everybody's different and everybody deals with things differently.
It's quite a gradual process as well, isn't it? It's like we have to wake up one day and think, "Cracky, do you know, I feel so much better." I mean, we have those days, but you know, but generally speaking, it's a bit of a slower process than that, and it's maybe a few years down the line when you look back at it and think, "Do you know what? Look where I've come from." You know, from there, and I've not been looking at it. I've not been paying too much attention to it, but look, you know,
and people always say, "Oh, that's when I turned a corner." So if you feel like it was that day, but do you really, when you're coming back from struggles and things? You don't. It's a gradual process.
Did you say like getting into a relationship changed that for you as well?
See, I've never until I met Tom. I was never very good at relationships.
No, I've struggled.
Yeah, do you know what? I think the thing was, I've always enjoyed doing what I do when I want to do it. Quite a selfish thing, which goes hand in hand with angling and, you know, my other sort of hobbies. And I think there was that fear factor. I didn't want to feel trapped. Like, I didn't want to feel that I couldn't just be like, well, I'm doing that today. That I'd have to say to somebody, do you mind if I do that today? Is it okay if we do this? Do you want to do that? And I just didn't want to be that person. And I think, again, I just probably not met the right person, you know. And don't get me wrong, I've, you know, had relationships in the loosest term with, you know, loads of nice people, but there were never anything serious, and it was always like, this is just a bit of fun. And I was always pretty clear, this is just a bit of fun, you know, it's nothing serious. I'm not looking for
So what were you looking
serious.
for? Someone who's a bit more stable, or
I was never looking for that. Like, so when I met Tom, I was never looking for that. And I think I remember even said to Tom at the beginning, this is just a bit of fun. It was like my get out clause. It was like, this is just a bit of fun. It's nothing serious. I'm not looking for anything serious. And then people start throwing the L word around, don't you? And I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
As a proper commitment, my friends used to take the piss out of me.
But do you think so the L word, do you think you noticed that quite early on then?
With Tom, I can't even remember.
God, he's going to be cringing it. He works in the industry.
He works in the industry. Yeah. I could tell you loads of Tom stories.
Oh, he's going to love this.
Oh, no. Do you know what? And we're not soppy. We're the least soppy couple going. He's not romantic. I'm certainly not romantic. But we just got to know each other, and it clicked, and it happened. And then, I mean, I'd never even had a spare room because I didn't want mates descending on my house and living with me. Because again, I like to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And then he ended up staying a few nights a week. And then I just remember we were chatting on the sofa one day, and it was like, well, he was working. He was still in construction at the time, and he was going to be working on a site not far from me. I said, well, just stay here. And then he did that for a bit. And I was like, well, you might as well just move in, hadn't you? So that's it. He moved in, and then 2 months later, I was like, should we get a dog?
I've seen your husky dog, yeah. Nice.
And then that's it. I mean,
that's it. Once you got a dog,
well, that's it. I mean, you bypassed marriage and babies and everything. There's no bigger commitment than a dog, is there? You know, a baby, you can like move it around in the seat and stuff. A dog, you know, 30 kilos.
Oh, you got a picture then, lovely, yeah.
He's
what's his name?
Kaiser.
Kaiser, that's right. Yeah.
He's gorgeous. Look at that.
They are striking dogs,
the Huskies,
aren't they?
Isn't it? They're deep blue eyes.
Yeah.
They are beautiful.
It's funny hearing you talk about the commitment of a dog. I've not long had one.
Oh, and, he's having problems.
Change your life. No, we're all good now. But it's like, as you said, the commitment, that is it, isn't it?
Full on.
Is she still waking up in the middle of the night?
No, she shares my pillow now. All good.
She's got her own way with him because
absolutely.
Yeah, they do though, don't they? We had all the best intentions. We brought him back from the rescue centre. We've got a baby gate. He's going to sleep in the kitchen.
Oh, that's exactly how we started.
Going to sleep in the kitchen.
Yep.
Well, he did for the first 2 nights, and then on the third night, we just heard this almighty clatter, and he just, I mean, you can see he smashed through a baby gate, just jumped over the baby gate, came upstairs, and we just saw this little face at the end of the bed. Oh, mate. And for a few months, probably looking back, it was probably about a month, he slept on the rug at the bottom of the bed. Oh, we can cope with that. That's absolutely fine. That's lovely. He wants to be with us. You know, he's had a tough start in life. And then the very first time we went out and left him, it was only for about an hour. I think we went to the supermarket. And when we came back, it was like we'd been gone for a week, bless him. We felt so bad. But that night when we went to bed, he literally jumped on the end of bed and laid on both our feet as if to say, well, you two aren't going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere now.
And that's it. He's been on the bed ever since.
That's funny. We had the exact same experience. Starts downstairs, all good, that's fine. And she did a couple of months. And then she was poorly one time. So it was about a week where she had some broken sleep. And ever since then, it was like she just got further and further upstairs. And now she has a bed next to our bed. So she sleeps in the crate in the corner of the room. And she stays in there for about an hour or so. And now she's figured it out, see, because she'll poke her. I've seen her do it. She pokes her head out the crate to check if we're asleep. And then she's got some little steps. She's a little dash hound, so you have to get them some steps. They can't jump around too much. But you got to, because they're
You've given her the opportunity to do it. You've given her
some steps because they. I was all fine for it anyway. And anyway, I pretended to be asleep one night, and she goes up one step, and then she stops and looks, and then the next step. Stops and looks, and then after that, she just jumps straight on your head, and that's it. It's game over.
She was making a bit of a racket as well, wasn't she, Tony?
She was, but like you said, she got further up the steps and upstairs. Since then, that's it. She got away.
So that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
No, I never had dogs. My ex-girlfriend, we had cats, but our cat wasn't as big as your husky. It's as big as your dog, Tobe. Massive, great big.
Yeah.
My girlfriend used to walk him on a lead to start off with.
She used
weighed
to get
7 kilos. Yeah, it was like.
Yeah, that's definitely. What did your dash hound weigh?
4 kilos.
Oh yeah.
Just
30 kilos.
Oh, 30 kilos. Wow.
Yeah, he does. Funnily enough, my brother sent me a text this morning. because Tom's got a very dramatic story about when Kaiser broke his finger. I don't think it was broken. Tom is really dramatic.
That sounds like me, actually.
It's broke. I mean, it was a little bit bent, but it wasn't broken. It was just a little bit dislocated. And then recently, Kaiser's damaged my brother's hand when we were out walking with him, and then he's managed to shred a load of skin off mine last week when I was out walking with him. My brother sent me a text. He was like, "Does Kaiser's insurance cover you for human damage?" I was like,
I
Kaiser
don't know. You need to try. Yeah.
But yeah, he's a beast. But I won't be without him.
So, I mean, the family life is complete now then, Bev, is it?
That's it.
You've
family
got everything.
life is complete, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mum's got a longer wanted grandchild.
She's got the grandchild.
Yeah, my mum said the same. I said, well, you've got one now. That's it. Just because you've got a tail doesn't mean like there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've grown up with dogs all our life. And I mean, my dad is daft as a brush with him. He calls him my kai. I mean, my dad's never been like that with his kids.
Yeah, where did this come from?
My dad's idea of affection used to be like when he walks past me in the office was like whacking me on the back of the head. That is my dad's idea of affection. With the dog, it's a completely different story.
So this relationship then, did you get out fishing together and stuff like that? Do you do much of that?
Yeah, we've had some really, really good times
So who's
together.
the best angler then?
I would say Tom, when it comes to big fish, Tom is probably actually the better angler. And that probably he's been doing it a lot less time, but he completely absorbs like everything that he watches. And because of the job he's been doing in the industry now, he's been going out with some mega anglers.
That's a nice picture we're looking at now.
Yeah, look at Kaiser's face though.
Yeah, very serious.
No, he's got the cob on because
he looks pissed off there.
Yeah, because we're not paying him attention because it's all about the fish. It's
Just
not about
sitting in the corner
Really?
sulking.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah, he knows.
That's a nice carp you're holding there.
Yeah, it's
Lovely
from.
picture.
Yeah, that's a really nice fish. Where was that?
So I don't know if we're allowed.
Oh no, don't
Don't
worry.
Yeah, it's a little place. I think Tom's mentioned it a few times.
Right.
A place called Waterways that Tom had a ticket for, and he managed to get me a guestie on there not long before he left. But
Did he
it's a
catch
mega
anything
fish.
that session, or was that the
Yeah,
end?
Tom had a mega one as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
How big was that?
30. I'm rubbish with weights. Weights don't mean anything.
That's
to me.
nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were saying this before that it just pisses you off that you hear these people. What's he caught? He hasn't caught anything. It's like it's just.
Has he had a good time?
Yes, he's enjoyed himself, hasn't
Wow,
he?
he's
catching.
winning in life,
he's holding
isn't
a cut and he's
winning.
happy.
Yeah, he's happy.
Or
'Cause that's
she,
what- yeah, because
so-
that's what it's all about. Because if you're not happy, what is the bleeding point?
Yeah.
I mean, we used to get so frustrated with Carp-Talk when it became like super cool to do, because that doesn't make for a very good front cover, does it? Somebody, pouting down at an angler, because what sells magazines is a face, somebody that looks happy and is engaged. Like that's a proven,
Is it? Yeah.
Anybody that studies marketing will know that is how you get, somebody to engage with an advert, somebody that's their face is engaging with an advert. But carp anglers don't get that, do they? And they think this is cool. And what frustrates me even more now is this one where they're holding the carp here.
Yeah.
And you can just see the top of the head. What's all that about?
That's so weird, isn't it? Well, you
But
can hardly see the eyes
they don't
popping
want-
over it. It's
they
just
don't want them
bizarre.
to notice them, but they want a photo with the carp. Well, if you...
Yeah, just don't bother
just
sending it.
don't-
Yeah, why
just don't
bother?
Just don't bother.
It's really strange.
Yeah, because nobody knows it's you with the carp anyway. There's somebody guy holding a carp that's got a hat on. That's all we can see.
We need someone like Terry just to like grinning at the picture, grinning at the camera, don't we? And he seems to influence so many people, and other anglers as well. It's like they need to set an example. This is this is the sort of picture that we want to see.
Yeah, well, it's changing now, and it's social media sort of takes on, its form, and
it was a real accolade being on the cover of Carp. I never got on the cover.
yeah, no, exactly. It was a real accolade, because
caught
not only
anything.
did you have to have caught a newsworthy fish that week, it had to be a good enough quality photograph. And that's what a lot of people didn't realise. They were like, well, mine was the best fish that week. Yeah, but mate, your picture was out of focus, and you had the bivvy in the background, you had your grandma down there, you had the bucket there, and it was a landscape picture, and we need a portrait because it's a portrait magazine. And they just didn't get that. The amount of times we'd say to people, if you want a front cover, think about taking a front cover image, because that's what's going to get you it. And we often used to try and put, diversify a bit as well, because, you could go down the route of putting the biggest fish. But at one point, if we'd put the biggest fish on every week, it'd just be a fish from Welly.
Yeah.
Because at one point that was, and before that, the Essex Manor. And that nobody wants to see, that's not a magazine for everybody, is it? And I think some of my favourite, there was a kid that we had on the front cover one winter, and I think the story was something about him. He couldn't go to school because it was snowing. So he'd got his barrow, and it was like a proper wheelbarrow, a garden wheelbarrow, and he'd put his gear on it, and he'd walked some mega distance with his little barrow, gone fishing, and he'd caught this, and it was like £16 or something like that. But in the winter, that's a decent fish. But the effort he'd gone to as well, and we put it on, and you got all the Keep It Real crew. What's Alice about? Isn't that a proper cover?
Oh dear, jeez. Yeah.
One, you've made that kid's week, and two, it's something a bit different, and he was so chuffed. And every time I used to see that cover, you'd see the covers you come across when you're doing stuff, I'd get a real good feeling. I'd think, look how much that kid's loving it, and the story behind it. And I was thinking the other day when I was driving, I was thinking about it. I was like, I wonder if that kid's still going carp fishing.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's still out there doing it. I wonder where he's fishing now, and if he's stuck with it. Yeah, because the dedication and effort he'd gone to that day to catch that fish, it was pretty cool.
I remember my friend being on it. Chef Special was the cover title for that. Who comes up with all that stuff?
Oh, we had loads of people. To be fair, a lot of them used to be come up with by Dave, who was one of our designers. But he was quite good with words, and he was quite good with headlines. But I mean, God, sometimes we'd be going back for hours back and forth trying to come up with something. Yeah. There's some stories behind it. So one of the worst ones. So I mean, considering there was about 10 of us in the office at the time, everybody used to see a copy of the cover in the end, because we were just looking for spelling errors, proofing it, because when things were in bold font, it's harder to spot spelling errors, and it was all bolded and all in capitals, so it was sort of a bit harder to spot spelling errors. And we'd sent the magazine off to press this one week, and it was an angler's paradise fish, and we'd caught, rather than putting paradise, we'd put paradise.
Oh no.
It's just like, when it comes back and it's like, fuck. I remember messaging my brother, it's like, dude, we've put paradise on the cover. And he was like, I think he was off, or one of the guys was off. It was like, how's nobody spotted that we've put paradise? It's like, we've spotted it now. It's too late.
Does that happen very often? If I was doing that would happen every week, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Would be a
disaster.
There's always errors in print, isn't there? I mean, you pick up a book from Penguin, a popular publisher, and I'll be reading books now, and I'll be like, typer, and that's probably because I've worked in that industry. But yeah, I mean, there'd be stuff.
Makes it a bit unique, though, doesn't it?
Do you know who does make a lot of typos online? It's Sky Sports.
Yeah,
their articles are littered with typos, and some really bad ones as well.
It's rushing to get stuff out there. Isn't it?
That's it. But it'll be in the headline and stuff.
When COVID first kicked off, and I deleted this Sky News app not long after COVID started the first time, because I just couldn't bear this bad news constantly being in my face. But they'd be obviously literally typing stuff up as it was happening in conferences. It was horrendous. It was like, whoa, just slow down a second. I know you want to be first there with the news, but you Sky, you should at least have a little bit of.
That's surprising, isn't it?
Check-in.
It'll be somebody that's typing and not even looking at what they're typing.
Yeah, probably touch typing.
And they'll just file it through, and that's it.
Yeah. Sloppy. All right, Bev. So you went from you've gone through all of this stuff, and you've but you found something else to occupy your time.
To take away from the partying, I need something else as well. I'd smoked and drank and partied quite heavily, and I'd always said to myself I would quit smoking before I was 30, just because I think I must have read somewhere that if you quit smoking before you're 30, your body pretty much can repair all of the damage you've done. I think there's obviously exceptions, but so your lungs and stuff will still be all right. So I'd always said to myself I'd quit before I was 30, and I'd quit a few times, and I'd never really wanted to, but then I got to around sort of 26, 27, 28, somewhere around that age, and I stopped partying. I was like, I need to start looking after myself a bit more. You can't just wing it. As you get older, you need to be a little bit more conscious of
Everything you were
healthy
doing
stuff.
at that point before then was bad for your body, was it? I mean, were
It
you?
wasn't great. I thought, I always went to the gym a bit and stuff like that, but it wasn't, and I didn't eat particularly really bad, but I didn't eat particularly well. But drinking, drugs, smoking, not great for your body, are they? I used to stay up till all hours, survive on minimal sleep on a weekend. None of that's great, but you can't get away with it forever,
God, she's a
can you?
fun girl, isn't she?
That's wild.
Ticking all the boxes there, Bev.
I was a bit wild.
Yeah.
And then I just did a full 180 and just became the most boring person in the world that goes to
No,
bed
no.
early and eats kale.
Do you?
Literally, yeah. Sometimes Tom gets his tea and he's like,
Oh no.
what's that?
Yeah.
It's like courgette. I don't think I like courgette.
So he was the one that was trying to sort of swing you around, and
No, to be fair, I'd pulled myself together a bit
Yeah.
before Tom. But again, the whole extreme things, I was like, right, well, and I think I'd gone the Carp-Talk lads and Neil Rivers, Burnsy, Hughesy were doing the Paris 10, which is when you do the Paris 10 running course, it's part of when people are going to get in the Paris, they have to do what's called the Paris 10. So it's a 10 miler with full weight on the back, but you can do it as just a civilian, just as, a bit of fun.
how much weight?
I think it's £35.
Right.
Some, I think that's what you do if they're in the race, if you're a civilian. I think actually if you're doing it to qualify for the Paris, I think it's actually more. But to do it as a civilian race, I'm pretty sure it's £35. So they were all doing that. Anyway, they did it and raised a load of money for the parachute regiment. And I went to watch them. So I watched them do this thing and I was like, I fancy having a go at that. And it's a bit of that sort of competitive rivalry thing. It's like, I can do that. And they were going to do it the next year. So I was like, well, I'm going to run that. I've never run in my life. Like I said, the last time I'd run was when I did cross country at school. And I used to dip off for a fag at the back. So I said to my brother, will you help me train? He was like, yeah, but you've got to quit smoking. I was like, all right then. So I was just quit smoking like that. And you go from, I sort of went from doing that, trained for that, quit smoking, realised you need to eat a bit healthier. And then sort of threw weight training in, always enjoyed weight training before when I'd done it. And just sort of, started from there. And then that whole competitive, brother-sister rivalry thing. So once I'd done a 10 miler, so I didn't do the whole 5K thing, by the way. I just decided to do 10 miles, Paris 10 course. Skipped that bit. But then he was like, well, if you've done 10 miles, you can do half marathon. All right, then. Yeah, of course I can. If you can do it, I can do it. Well, then he's like, well, you can do a marathon now. I was like, all right, then. And he was doing what they call ultras, which is anything over a marathon distance. He was like, well, you can do a 50K now. It's like, all right then.
50K, yeah.
Like, I would do a 50 miler. It's like, all right then. Obviously, where we're going next. You can do a 100 miler. It's like, yeah, all right then, do that. So it was just that whole
So
brother.
you did stop at some point, didn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
She's still going. She's on
still
500
going.
now. Yeah.
500 mile round run.
And it's just that whole brother sister, and there's the rivalry there, but also, we'd do loads of training together, and we'd go off to the mountains for the weekend together, and we'd go running in the Lake District, and running adventures, and we'd get caught in miserable weather, and we'd fall over, and we'd get lost, and we'd be in fog, and it'd be shitty, and one of us would be grumpy, and one of us would be really miserable. But at the end of the day, you're just having a massive adventure and a massive laugh,
And yet you're in beautiful places.
beautiful places.
And
There's
it's
nobody around.
atmospheric. It's just being out in the wild.
I mean, that picture I've thrown up is pretty atmospheric, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's just taking the dog at one of the local places that we off lead.
So is the dog thinking, is Kaiser thinking, oh, for Christ's sake, we got another 10-mile run here? Or?
No.
Kaiser's
200
thinking,
miles.
Yeah.
what is he doing with that bleeding camera in my face again?
That is a great picture.
No, because with him being a husky, they've got a really high prey drive, so you can't let him off we can't let him off the lead. He'd just be gone. So we take him to an enclosed sort of dog place for taking dogs off the lead for exercise, and just run around with him and throw a ball with him. Tom obviously gets the camera out, and yeah, it just happened to be snowing this day, and Tom had the camera out. But I run him on on a waist belt. We go off and have all sorts of adventures, me and him.
Yeah,
And yeah, he
I
puts
bet.
puts my back out almost sometimes. But yeah, it's just that exploring thing. It's like, you know, and I'm not stupid with it. You know, I've learnt that, you know, you can't just go off into the mountains in the middle of nowhere and go up high in remote places in bad weather and not have a map and a compass and a bivvy bag and stuff in case you get caught out, because I don't want to be that dickhead that has to get, you know, mountain rescue out. You know, so I always go prepared, but there is no better feeling than going off on an adventure. And I used to be really bad for not letting anybody know where I was going, and I've started letting Tom know I'm parked here, I'm heading so and so, you know, and I'm going to do X amount of miles, and I expect to be back roughly around. But that's just feeling that being in the middle of nowhere and you don't see anybody all day, and you know you go through suffering. You know, you suffer a bit, and you know, you're just out there and there's nobody there, and it is atmospheric. You know, and that's the thing. You know, you get that when you're carp fishing. You know, we sat on a lake, and you know, for me, yeah, I love fishing the matches, and you know, I am a massively social person. But if I had to pick one venue to fish for the rest of my life, it would be a venue that's pretty remote, where there's not a load of other people, there's a bit of adventure, there's not nice swims, you know, it's a bit overgrown, you're probably going to get nettles, you know, it's not 100% comfortable, because I just like that ruggedness.
Somewhere like that. That looks like the Lake District.
That's the Lake District.
Yeah, I've been there a few times.
Do you know what? I used to love going on.
Is that Windermere?
So that is, I think that we're on Catbells there.
Oh, I've been at Catbells.
Yeah, Cat's a lovely little mountain.
Yeah.
I think that's coming down from Catbells.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's me, Tom, and the dog.
It's one of the best places in the UK to visit, isn't it? I like Ambleside and
Ambleside. Grasmere is probably, me and Tom sort of fell in love with Grasmere. He booked it for my birthday one year, the first year we'd got the dog, and booked this beautiful hotel that he'd just stumbled across in Grasmere, and we've literally been back every year since. And it's just
special place. That is.
It is a special place.
You've been up into Scotland?
No, well, I'd tell a lie. I've been a couple of times. I've done Ben Nevis. Me and my brother bashed out the National Three Peaks one weekend just for a bit of fun.
Like you do,
just like you do, yeah. Just went and bashed it out. So I've been up there for that reason. I've been to Edinburgh a couple of times for a family holiday with my auntie and my cousin when I was younger. And then I went and did a sort of trail running map reading weekend in the Cairngorms the year before. But so not spent that much time up there, but hoping to change that.
What's the trail? The West Coast Trail, isn't it?
West Highland Way.
West Highland Way, which takes you from Glasgow to Fort William, doesn't it?
Yeah. I know it starts at
That'd
Fort
be all right,
William.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it's about 70 miles, 70, 80 miles.
Oh, you'd run that in a day, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah.
She says with confidence.
Yeah.
All sorts of things can go wrong, can't they?
Yeah. No, but they're great. They're great places, and like you say, they're good places to be able to sort of find yourself, and
it's switching off, isn't it? It's like, that's the thing that I love about carp fishing, is that when you're there, like, and sometimes when I've run in, I've let work and other thoughts and stuff dominate my runs. Especially if I listen to music, I tend to zone into my own thoughts, whereas you put a podcast on and you can lose yourself in the podcast world. But when you're fishing, there's something about being fishing and something about the chilledness that you have when you're on the bank, you're away from it all, where you can just switch off and you can forget all those worries, you can forget all the problems, nothing matters. It doesn't matter, you know, again, when I was saying, you know, as a woman, you sometimes feel that pressure of what you look like. It doesn't matter what you look like. You know, you can just be, you don't give a shit, do you? You just, you know, there, you wake up and your hair's all over the place, and there's no mirrors, so you can't even see, can you? It doesn't matter what you look like. And I think that's why I've enjoyed the running and the fishing, is because that's not a priority. And it's, you know, even in road running, there's a big sort of element of people wanting to wear the right gear and, you know, look right and stuff like that. But, you know, fishing and when you're climbing mountains and when you're trail running, it's not a key thing. You know, and you don't. When
you're fishing, do you prefer it quiet, or you can still find that with people around you, or ideally it would be quiet?
If I had to pick that one place that, you know, when people say pick your ideal venue, it would be somewhere, you know, remote, you know, quite quiet, not many people around, where, you know, where you sat in your swim and you can't see loads of other people or loads of vans. So somewhere where you switched off and you're not bothered. Don't get me wrong, I love it down linear, fishing with the girls, practicing for the matches and stuff like that. But, sometimes that whole, people coming by you swim, have you had out, mate? And where are you fishing? Oh, have you got Carp-Talk? Oh, I sent you a catch report. And as lovely as all that was, I was going fishing on a weekend and you're trying to switch off and you just couldn't switch off on them venues.
Yeah.
And I love all that because that's my industry and that's a passion and stuff like that. But, those quiet venues where you probably won't see somebody for a few days.
Are you on a syndicate or anything?
Yeah, so I've got a Girton ticket, which Girton is a water in... I think it classes as Nottinghamshire, and it's big, 65 acres. I'm not quite sure how many carp in there. I think there's a few hundred carp in there. It's a nice £60 common, £50 common.
£60 common?
Yeah, it's
wow.
Nice. It used to live in Pendle View, and it got moved years ago.
Was it an English... Is it an English fish? Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, I'd like to catch it.
I'm sounding a bit precious now, aren't I?
You are sounding really precious.
Yeah, I am a little bit.
I know,
yeah, maybe. I mean, a £60 common is like...
It's
there aren't loads of them around.
It's legit enough for certain people to have the name on that waiting list. I know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you define, again, all that legitimate stuff with, how legit a fish is? It's... Again,
what's
the
worst one for
catch.
you recently? I mean, you got the hen femfish, which, and Rob Hales and the poor guys that keep catching, they caught those. I know, it's like I feel so sorry for you.
And it's like the people go after them with proper hatred in what they're writing, and and for some of them, sending death threats to these people, and you think, what is wrong with those people that's sending them? That person has just gone out, enjoyed his hobby, which is also your hobby, and caught a fish and decided to put it on his social media pages and report it to news magazines, and who've then just reported the news. When Rob Hales' bigwig got caught at, the first big weight, and we obviously put it in the magazine. I think we put it front, a big story on it. It's news. We reported on the news. All we ever did was report facts. We never put our own opinions in there because they're our opinions, and, a magazine like that isn't somebody's opinions. It's a news magazine. And some of the comments and stuff like that people threw at me and Crowe, for reporting the news. And it was like, that's not necessarily our opinion. You don't know what our opinion is. Don't come after us. That was a really disappointing side to our industry. And that was, I had a couple of years where I barely even went fishing. And it was when social media was sort of peaking and Facebook was peaking before Instagram sort of became sort of more predominant and sort of took over from Facebook. And that negativity really pushed me away from going fishing, because even when I was on the bank, it was still always there as a stark reminder. And there were just people digging people out for everything, the way they held fish, the way they did this, fishing that water, fishing this water. And it's like, just let somebody go fishing and do what they want and put it on their Facebook page. Yeah. You're not the police, the carp police, they think the carp the police, but just go and do your thing. If you're that bothered when you sat on your armchair at home about what somebody else is doing, then pick up another hobby that you can do, because trolling people on the internet isn't a hobby.
It's horrible, isn't it? I hope people that listen to this as well do. Maybe there are some of those people that listen to this podcast and they have been guilty of that, and they do listen to this and think, if you haven't got anything positive to say, just leave it behind. It's
and a lot of these people, like, we'd have met these people in the past, or we'd know these people, and they've got kids, wives, and like, what kind of example are you setting to your kids if you're doing that? And when we've had problems in the past, I mean, this is going back years, it's, there's very little problem in carp fishing with this now. Some of the stuff that was said to women and some of the stuff that, was commented on my post, that women don't belong on the bank, I go fishing to get away from the missus.
Have you heard that very much?
Not in recent years, but at first, I got it a lot. And from people my age as well, women don't belong on the bank, I go fishing to get away from the missus. And I used to screenshot them and save them in a folder called Facebook Wankers. Literally.
Name and shame.
Well, I've just thought, in case I ever, decide to publish a book or something. then I just won't write anything about me because that'd just be really boring. I'll just publish all these things.
You've been warned.
You've been warned, yeah. You know, you're putting it in a public domain. It can be screenshotted. It will be noted. It won't be forgotten. They don't think about that, do they? But also, it was just like, you know, people saying that, and I used to, and it's never bothered me because I'd got far too thick a skin by that age. But I just thought, how are we ever going to get other women into the sport, or young girls into the sport, or people's wives and girlfriends to see fishing in a positive light that they'd want to go with them or fancied picking up a carp rod, when there was that kind of just immature attitude branded around. And it was just, I mean, and I think, again, that's a negative side of social media, but the positive side was, for every idiot like that, there was 100 guys that would come on and be like, are you for real? You're not even funny, you know, and really sort of pull them apart. And, you know, now
you're going to get defended now, aren't you?
Yeah. And now, again, I was lucky enough to know a lot of people in the industry that would straight away sort of tear shreds off them and have my back. You know, and it sort of, it wipes it out. But it's still like, you know, it still gets out there occasionally. And I think in other areas of fishing, there, you know, the more women trying to come through now, and they're experiencing some of the same kind of problems with the older guys in there. But, you know, we just need to, you know, stand strong and stamp it out. And, you know, there's people that don't agree with that comments. Call the idiots out and be like, are you for real, mate? You know, you don't stand for that. What if that was your wife, or that was your girlfriend, or that was your kid? You know, would you accept that? And, you know,
it's pictures like that ultimately prevail, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, those girls, I mean, some of those girls are, you know, they're all great anglers, but some of them are absolutely phenomenal anglers. And the fact that, you know, some guys' attitudes are like, oh, what do women know about fishing?
How many of them have made it to that level? That's what I'd
like to put some of these gobby guys against some of these women and watch them wipe the floor with them. But they won't do it because they're too scared of getting their egos dented, aren't they?
Could you imagine?
Yeah, you know what's going to happen.
I bet it lasts a few minutes.
Women traditionally are better anglers anyway. They catch the bigger fish anyway. It's always been, you hear that a lot anyway, don't you?
Yeah, that's just, again, guys, excuses for something that we can't define because there's so much of fishing that's down to luck, isn't it?
And your pheromones, well, you've got female pheromones, so yeah, that's a disadvantage.
Well, again, this is another excuse that guys go with the female pheromones thing. I don't know. I'm not convinced on that. I think sometimes when women get into angling and they do really well, it's because they're maybe a bit more attention to detail and patient, thorough, you know, very sort of organised, you know, some of those things that women naturally have. And you'll see it in some of the male anglers that have those attributes. You know, that is key to, you know, catching carp. You know, you put all that effort into that. And, you know, it will pay off, you know, because if you're organised, you know, I'm not particularly organised when it comes to my fishing gear, you know, but my Tommy's, he'll sit at home tying rigs after rigs after rigs. So when he gets to the lake, you know, it's I think Pecky does it, doesn't he? When he gets to the lake, he's got all his rigs pre-tied, whereas I hate tying rigs, you know, so I'll do it when I get to the lake and I'm like, right, I need that rig.
Spinner rigs and multi-rigs are a great invention, I think, you know, it's like, you know,
yeah,
for being
the
able
easiest rigs are the best rigs in my opinion.
But he's right. I mean, you want to be going to the lake and being prepared and not wasting your time on stuff that you can prepare for beforehand.
Yeah, and I think my other problem is when it comes to fishing matches, you have to do all that. So when I've sat there and tied like 50, 100 rigs up before matches, you know, so you're never going to run out because that's how organised you have to be for a match. But when it comes to my normal fishing, I just think, oh, I don't want to tie another bleeding rig. Can I find one of those match rigs and make it into a normal rig?
Yeah. What about angling? The Angling Trust, obviously, the last 12 months have really come to prominence, haven't they? And you've been involved with them for a few years.
Yeah, so a few years, it was maybe 5-6 years ago. They asked me if I'd be an ambassador, and I was never going to say no. I mean, back in those days, I think the Angling Trust had some struggles. Maybe some people that were, you know, at the forefront of it weren't pushing it in the direction that it needed to go. They were fighting for the things that I maybe believed they should be fighting in, and I certainly didn't think they portrayed what they did for angling in the right way. And for me, they sometimes feel like they never gave carp angling the love that it deserved. and the only time they ever seemed to mention carp angling was in a bit of a negative light. Like, they always seem to report when, you know, somebody got prosecuted for fishing illegally, but they never, you know, they never give us any drum rolls. You know, they're never like, oh, you know, look at carp fishing doing really well, or, you know, look at this, look at that. So when they asked me to be an ambassador, part of the thing was that I would be in a feedback loop. You know, I could give my opinion and I could, you know, comment on things. So, you know, I was always going to say yes. And I knew the work that the Angling Trust did, and I knew that the work that the Angling Trust did then and do now is very important, and that we should support the trust. So, you know, I was never going to say no. And, you know, started working with some of the guys there on bits, and, you know, there's some really good guys there behind the scenes. And I think part of the problem was with the Angling Trust in the past is they didn't relay to the anglers out there the importance of some of the jobs they were doing. And they forgot that communicating with the anglers is key to getting the support from the anglers and letting the anglers know what they were doing. And they just weren't doing that. And also, when they were doing it, they weren't really doing it in anglers' terms. They were doing it in their sort of governing body terms. And a lot of people don't understand that kind of talk, and I don't, for one example.
Were they really passionate anglers that were running it at that time then?
I don't know if they were in certain types of angling. They weren't.
So they had interests in certain parts of angling, but not
in angling as a whole. I never got that impression.
And
but
Jamie Cook seems to be a bit more.
Jamie's definitely
all rounder.
Yeah, but I mean, the guys I've always dealt with at the Trust, Will Smith, for example, and not the Will Smith, unfortunately.
Right.
Angling Will Smith, and some of the other guys, you know, they're, because I'd known them from the Spezi world, and they're passionate anglers, you know, and they were there, you know, low down, but they were fighting for things to change. You know, you know, there's always been good people there. They just maybe were, you know, the voice at the top. But, you know, Jamie's come in, and Jamie's done a fantastic job. You know, he's really changed. Not, you know, he's not done, you know, massive changes with what the Trust's, you know, values and things are, but how it's portrayed to the angler, so that we can so that everybody can understand how important the Trust are. Yeah, he's made it a lot more transparent, so that people can see how important it is that we support the Angling Trust. And yeah, Jamie's, you know, done a fantastic job, and what he did, you know, throughout the pandemic, you know, fighting to get angling. Wow, you know, what a great job. He's speaking to anglers, you know, on a more grassroots basis, which is what it needs, you know. And Angling Trust is something for everybody that's involved in angling, and he's highlighting that, and he's making sure that happens, because it was a bit, you know, one-sided towards a certain type of angling.
Right.
Before.
I mean, so do you see your role as representing the voice for women in fishing, or just you know, this feedback loop? I mean, is this a general kind of perspective on everyone, or do you feel like you need to get the female stuff through more?
There's the females, which that's becoming, you know, more important now, because the Trust are keen, you know, to improve diversity in angling, and, you know, so the angling, the Environment Agency, you know, that's keen for them to grow angling in, you know, the women's side of things, kids, you know, different backgrounds. That's always important for any sport, to improve that. So that's, you know, that is an important side of things. But also just, you know, reminding the Trust that, you know, carp anglers, what's important to carp anglers maybe isn't important to game anglers and isn't important to sea anglers, and just relaying that message of, and Hughes is, you know, done a far better job than I have of this, is just relaying to the Trust how to communicate with carp anglers, you know, and how to engage with them so that they understand, you know, how important it is to support the Trust. And it's frustrated me a little bit recently, actually, because I've spoken to quite a few people, and they've still not joined the Angling Trust, even though the Angling Trust have fought, you know, I dread to think, you know, Amy and the team, how many sleepless nights they had for us to be able to go fishing, you know, throughout the pandemic, and people still not supporting the Trust. It's like, come on, guys, it's 30 quid a year.
You know,
you spend thousands and thousands of pounds on syndicate tickets.
Yeah, of course.
How
does it all? I mean, do you come up with an idea and sort of suggest it to the Angling Trust, or are they always asking you for feedback?
No, I've never done that. I mean, I think Rob does, but, you know, certain things I'll speak to, you know, certain people about, and they'll just ask for an opinion. recently we've given feedback on sort of some campaigns and stuff like that, and it's just giving your opinion sometimes. And I mean, up until recently that never really happened. Again, you were there as an ambassador, and I think even Terry's an ambassador.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah,
there was a lot of ambassadors, but they didn't really want us to do anything. I think they just literally wanted our name to for it to look like they gave a shit, maybe, I don't know, speaking out of turn, but it felt like that sometimes.
But I mean, in that case, it's a bit fake, isn't it? Because you're using people's names, but then you're not actually utilising what they're actually really there for. It's not, so you need to be making use of that.
Yeah.
Do you see suggestions and ideas like recently that have been made that you see coming to fruition? That you wouldn't have done before?
I mean, the contact that we have from them, the emails that we have from them, even just asking us to share stuff on their social media. Before, it was like something had happened with the Angling Trust, and even through the mags, we would get the press releases for game, and I cannot tell you how many times we emailed them back saying, please don't send us the press releases for game, please send us the course fishing press releases, ideally carp fishing press releases. And it went on for years, and it was like, when you feel like you're banging head against a brick wall, and it's like, it's not hard. It's not hard. Take us off the game list and put us on the course list, like just
just brushing it aside again, weren't they?
It was just, I don't think they even cared.
No.
But in the past few years since Jamie's taken over, there's regular newsletters going out from the Angling Trust. The Facebook page has changed. The way they speak to anglers, the message they're putting across. As ambassadors, we get asked to get involved with things. I think Ali must be an ambassador now.
He has, because last year he was doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they've got loads of key people involved.
Yes.
And that's,
So Ali, for example, I mean, do you think in years, so if this pandemic had happened like 3 or 4 years ago, do you think they would have approached Ali and said, look, we need to really push this through like this?
No, I don't think they would. I don't know how it would have panned out if Jamie hadn't been at the helm. I don't know how.
Jamie, because he's only been in the job just over like a year, hasn't he? He's had a hell of a year, hasn't he?
He's really shone, hasn't he?
I mean he's more famous than Terry Hearn now, isn't he?
I think he can give himself Employee of the Year award, guy.
Yeah.
He's done a good job, really, isn't he?
Do you know what? I really enjoyed his podcast that he did with, I can't think who did it.
Baitworks.
Yeah.
They'd done a podcast with us as well, but we couldn't release it because the rules, the regulations were changing all the time. And by the time we went to put it out, it was old news.
Yeah.
It was old news. So, they'd done a good job with that. Mike asked some good questions there.
Yeah.
And I liked it. He got Jamie on a fishing level.
Yeah, it was really nice to find out about that. Jamie's sort of his fishing history, and like I would have never realised how much carp fishing he'd done, and he was sort of steeped in his own little carp fishing history.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
definitely. I think that was a good thing for carp anglers to be able to relate to listening to Jamie there and fishing some of those those waters that people like to sort of listen to about
and Mike was quite honest, saying that he had no idea what the Angling Trust did, and he was honest saying
none of us did, Bev, did we? I mean so unless it's going to benefit you, I mean, if I joined the Carp Society, I mean, I used to join the Carp Society, I used to be a 10-year member of Horseshoe Lake. So in truth, the only reason why I was renewing the Carp Society every year was because there was a benefit to it.
You. Yeah.
Whereas the Angling Trust, until you see what's happening over the last 12 months, you think, actually, this is the benefit. I never saw that. I never saw.
But that's where they were going wrong, because they've all, they were always doing important things with the money, but they just never highlighted it or put the message out or communicated with people in the right way for people to understand that. And it was like, so people aren't going to join, are they? If they actually have to go off their own back, look into it, research, do a load of reading, figure out, read behind the scenes. And to be fair, you sort of had to, I knew because I'd grown up in the industry, and when the Angling Trust came about, it was a very strong talking point. It was, I only knew the importance of it, and we joined as a business, because obviously it's the right thing to do. And as a business, they offer some, great support, especially if you're a fishery, on the terms of, the fish legal side of things and stuff like that. But, they just weren't very good at highlighting what they actually did with the money.
Is there anything specific that you would like to see at the moment? Is there anything that springs to mind that you think that would be nice if they could implement this? Bit on the spot.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wish you'd give me some time to think about that one.
Yeah.
No, because I think I know that it's all coming. Obviously, a thing I would say is, put in more effort into getting, women and kids on the bank, but I know they are working on that.
Are you seeing lots more women getting into fishing at the moment then? I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I guess through rod licenses, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because it's frustrating because when they collect the rod license information, they don't ask gender, do they?
No.
So we don't know.
That baffles me. That.
Yeah, so they say it's something to do with data protection, but in other sports.
Yeah, but in any other aspect of life, gender's always.
Yeah, when you apply for your passport, it's required.
So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the person just so I know for my own, my own self-satisfaction, like. But why is that? It's on your driving license.
That is so weird, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's not like it's a new thing. So the tread, tip your turn around, something.
Do you know how many carp anglers are actually in the Angling Trust at the moment? Join the Angling Trust. Would they have those numbers at the moment?
I would hope they do.
Yeah, so would I. Nigel Botherway said to me actually, because he said how many people actually go carp fishing. And
we don't know.
No one.
It was the $1 million question. Apart from where can I go fishing in whatever area, and have you got my catch report? The other question that we frequently used to get asked at Carp-Talk is how many people go carp fishing? Don't know, mate.
Well, because on our rod license, we don't get asked what type of fishing we do.
No, it's coarse, isn't it?
So it's just coarse fishing, so no one knows. But you'd think it'd be such an obvious answer to be able to come up with.
It's only a tick box, isn't it?
I know, just tick the box.
Yeah.
But you've done others like Carp After Combat and stuff as well. You've got involved with that stuff as well.
Yeah, I've done loads of tried to help loads of charities and stuff over the years, and it's hard sometimes because I'd love to say yes to everything, but you've only got so much time, haven't you? So. And I'm trying to help one charity for 1 year and offer a couple of years and then move on to another and help another charity like Carping for Heroes and stuff like that. And then over the past few years I've had to say, look, I'm really sorry with Carp Team England and then the Ladies Carp Academy stuff that I've set up. I've had to sort of say, I'd love to attend your charity event, but I just haven't got the time, otherwise you'd end up somewhere every weekend.
Yeah, I know. You lose your life.
You lose your life, yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice to be in demand, I guess. You were on Chris Evans as well, weren't you? Were you on his radio show?
I did go on the Chris Evans show.
How random is that?
I can't remember why they did.
Was he kind to you?
It was relatively. Again, I'm thick-skinned. They probably had, they always ask the same weird questions about fishing, and it's just like, because they don't get it because they're not anglers, they always ask odd questions, don't they, that you'd never ask another angler.
So what were you on the radio for?
I can't remember what the link up was.
Yeah, Chris Evans.
I can't remember.
There would have been a lot of people listening to that.
I got loads of people messaging me after. Have you just been on Chris Evans talking about carp fishing?
There could have been 1 million people listening to that. Yeah, but so why does your name always come out? How do they find like Bev Clifford? Do they just
again, the Angling Trust, they'll often, so when it's sort of like mainstream media, they will often contact governing bodies for link ups for people. So obviously me being with the Angling working with the Angling Trust, sometimes they will obviously put my name forward, and again, if you're going to do speak on mainstream media, they need to make sure it's a person that knows how to present themselves well and things like that, because it needs to be a good representation of sport. They don't want some drongo coming on that's not going to put it in a good light. So again, I've always tried to bear that in mind when I've put myself out there, that I'm representing our sport, and if I want to grow the women's side of things, I need to be mindful of that. And I was speaking to one of the young girls that's coming through now, a girl called Lauren Stanford, and she's throughout lockdown she's got a good Instagram following. She works at Turtle Fishing Tackle, and she said to me, she wants to do some more stuff about to try and get more women into angling. And she said, I've been thinking about doing some lives, but I'm a little bit unsure whether to do it. I'm worried that people won't watch it. And I went, just do it. You'll be absolutely fine. I'll help put some names together. I'll help you hook up with some other women that will be able to speak if if you're struggling. I said, but just do it, you know, you'll be absolutely fine. You've just got to do these things. And you know what, she's done it, and she's done such a good job. And we've figured out today, she started it. I think I did the first one with her on the 15th of January, and she's done them every Friday at 8 o'clock every week since we went into lockdown.
Wow. Yeah,
and she's done really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, and for her to have, and you know, I think she's about 20 or something like that. No interviewing skills and stuff like that. And she's just thrown herself out there, got it done. And, you know, I'm really proud of her, you know, because that's how things come about, and that's how people...
Sorry,
you know,
what was the name of that again, did you say?
She's just done it on her Instagram page, a girl called Lauren Sanford.
Lauren Sanford, and she does that...
And she does it every Friday at 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Right.
And she's just, you know, that's how change happens in, you know, and things push forward, and, you know, things grow. It's by people, you know, just taking a bit of a risk and taking a bit of a chance, and sometimes you have to be uncomfortable for change to happen. You've got to. You've got to, yeah. Nothing good comes in the comfort, in the comfort zone, does it?
Exactly.
And, you know, I think I said to her, it's like, I remember when Rob first asked me to do, you know, I think he'd put something on BT. He was like, I want you to do a bit to camera. And I was like, oh my God, you know, a bit on camera. I was like, you know, do you know, going back to the whole having body confidence issues and things like that, the first thing that I said was like, well, the camera puts on £8. And he was like, he just looked at me. He was like,
just get on with it.
Yeah. And I was like, why is that even the first thing that's come to my head?
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll sit there and I think, oh God, you know, I pull ridiculous faces when I talk. Does that really matter? You know, it don't, does it? It's about, for me, the whole thing is about getting people fishing, getting people outdoors, the mental health benefits of angling, you know, and growing a sport that has been so kind to me. And you can get so much enjoyment from, you know, if I can see more women on the bank, more guys on the bank, you know, just, you know, growing our sport, you know, that gives you job security. You guys are pretty secure at Korda anyway, but, you know, just growing the industry, you know, it's what did I find out the other day? Angling employs 37,000 people.
How many?
37,000 people.
Right.
The angling industry employs in this country. You know, I've got a house from it. I've had a, you know, nice life from it. You know, so that's again why I want to put back, you know. I know Danny, you know, ploughs a lot of money into the sport. It's Tom at Sticky, you know, has given me as much support as I want for the Ladies Carp Academy. You know, there's always people in our industry that are so willing to give back, you know, at their own cost to help the sport. And I think that's the really nice thing about the industry, is that, you know, there's so many people that are really passionate about it, that are willing to give it back. Some of these guys on the end here, I mean, this is one of the Ladies Carp Academies, like, sometimes I just sit and look at these photos and I think, yeah, that these weekends give so much back. But some of these guys on the end, like my mate Al there, I think we've got Stu Lennox, Andy Loebel, who I set it up with, Mike Bridges. This year we had Scott Lloyd, Jake Wildball that helped us.
Whereabouts was this picture taken?
Poole Bridge in York.
Yeah.
Mike at Poole Bridge always gives us the venue for free. Just, you know, all those guys that give up the weekends for nothing, you know, I do it as you know, there's no profit made out of it. Half the time it costs me money. But I just do it because, you know, it's something I'm so passionate about. And these guys, they give up their weekend, and they'll all tell you, you know, it's such a rewarding weekend. And a lot of these women come, and the difference I find between men and women is that men generally have confidence and women don't. Women are often really self-confident, don't believe in themselves as much. Maybe, you know, when you're a little bit younger, you're a little bit more gung-ho, but as you get older, I think a lot of them find, you know, they lack a lot of self-confidence and stuff like that. So we get them on the academy weekends and we just drill into them, you know, to believe in themselves, just to give it a go, you know, and they think that they need to be perfect casters, and, you know, they think that they're going to get to a lake and a guy's going to be, you know, pegged up next to him, and, you know, they're going to see him make a bad cast, or, you know, they crack off and stuff like that. And I'm like, these guys do it all the time, and we'll sit there and, you know, Scott, Jake, Mike, they will tell them, you know, that they do it all the time. You know, the best of the best do it all the time. The best strikers in football, I mean, I don't follow football, but I know you get a striker. They don't, you know, they miss the goal.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
I'll tell you what, this girl here looks like she's got a decent casting.
Do you know what's ace? Do you know what's absolutely ace? When you get these girls and they've not picked up a fishing rod hardly any times before, so they've got no bad habits.
She's
Right.
got the right arm
So you
quite
can
high there.
teach
She's
them.
bending,
You can just teach them the right technique.
Yeah.
That looks like it's going
Off
some
the off.
distance. That.
Oh, right. So we did a casting academy day at Naresby, and there was a young girl called Rowan. Oh, what's her last name? Rowan Higginson. I think she works in a tackle shop now, and she came, and I think she was chucking. They had a chucking 137 was her best cast. I mean, she's like 18 years old, and she's chucking 137. You think, and you get all these guys that are like, yeah. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
all
I
right,
can
then,
cast 140.
And like, it's just like it's technique and just
Yeah.
it's so great to see.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And
It's
a lot
good.
of the times you'll get, like, I can't remember if this girl, she'd been going with a boyfriend, and they'll be going with a partner, and the partner, they've been fishing for years, but you get that thing, and I mean, it's a guy, your other half trying to tell you how to do something, and you're not picking it up straight away, and then he's going, oh, for God's sake, just do it, and you're like, well, I can't do it, I don't understand. It ends up being an argument, and it's not an enjoyable experience, is it? So sometimes, there isn't that patience there in the relationship to be teaching your other half how to fish.
Yeah.
So you'll get a lot of the women will come, and they'll have been fishing with the fella or partner or dad or whoever a few times, and then it's having that confidence to go on their own, and don't get me wrong, sometimes we come in, they'll have taught them rigs, and you think, who the hell's taught you that? And you'll say, oh, where did you learn that? On my other half, and you think, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like that. It's not that learn that off master class, is it?
No.
Where's that come from?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll and we'll just say, right, just do your own thing. Argue back with him. You've had teaching. You've had really good tuition from some of the best anglers out there now. You can go away and be fully confident that you can go on your own, and you don't need to listen to him. And you don't need to do that, and you're fully confident to go away on your own and do your own thing.
What about women turning up on a lake on their own? I mean, is there a problem with that nowadays, or is it?
I don't think there is nowadays, especially a lot of, like, I speak to a lot of the day tickets, and I've been speaking to them a lot now in the job that I'm doing, so I've been catching up with a lot of them, and a lot of them are saying to me, they're seeing more and more women rocking up on their own with friends, and just going about their thing, doing it on their own, perfectly capable, perfectly confident. They might not be the best anglers in the world, but they're not the worst anglers.
But just accepted.
It's just accepted,
yeah.
And I
Of course
think,
it is, yeah.
God, I remember going and like they'd stare at you, as if you was
Yeah,
some kind
what's-
of
yeah,
alien,
yeah,
and like,
yeah.
what is that? And I always remember being, and actually, this is, I had a Bundy's ticket, and I think it was one of my last trips down to Bundy's, and I'd gone and they were just finishing off the fence, and I think it was, I think Embry had been involved with the fencing, and it was, as I pulled up to the gate, there was a guy there, and he'd come round to check the fencing, that was it, before they signed it off, and he was like, oh, can I help you? And I said, oh, I'm just coming down to fish. And he was like, do you fish here? And I was like, yeah. It's like, all right. And I just chatted to him for a bit, and he went, do you want me to help you with my gear? I was like, no, I'm fine, thanks. It's
How
like,
did you get on Bundy's?
I'd never fished it much. To be fair, well, I started off great guns. First trip, I had 2 fish.
Did you?
And then after that, it fizzled out, and I think mostly I caught tench.
Yeah.
I didn't get to put the time in that I would like.
Yeah.
It was 2 hours away. My work life at the time, Carp-Talk, was, as business got harder, we had less staff, so there was more pressure. You're taking on more jobs, doing more stuff. And yeah, I mean, I got down there a couple of times a year at best. It's a mega place, and
Yeah.
I'd love to fish it again when I have more time.
Yeah.
Somewhere, I don't know, I seem to really like deep waters. I find it.
I've
do you
never
know-
fished anywhere that deep.
Yeah, do you know when people are they get really excited about a certain kind of look? I think the depths of something excites me because you just don't know what's going on down there. You sat at a shallow lake and you can sort of imagine, you've got 10, 4, 5, even 15 foot of water. You can sort of build up a pretty good idea of what the fish are doing and stuff like that. And you sat there with you've got 30 foot if you step off the edge and 60 foot in the middle. You're like, yeah, I've got no idea what is
Yeah,
going
there's
on
an
down there.
element of mystery there, and if you're fishing a 40 foot deep lake, I mean that's like fishing a lake double the size, really, isn't it? If you're going to put that
you
into
think,
volume
it's
of water.
12 acres. Well, no, it's 12 acres.
Yeah, it's 24 acres. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
because of
humongous.
Yeah.
The best bit was when I remember going back and saying, I caught a couple of fish one session and went back and said to my dad, and he was like, oh, what depth did you catch them? I was like, 30 foot. Fish don't feed in 30 foot water. Well, they do. And he was like,
No.
they don't. I was like, well, they do. And like anybody that's fished like Bundy's will know those fish feed in the deepest parts of that lake.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely adamant that those fish would not feed. And I was like, oh, I'm not arguing with you. You can't argue with my dad. And I was just like, I'm not arguing with you. I was like, but they do.
So he still thinks that now, does he?
Probably, but I've never addressed it with him again.
But yeah. You mentioned as well about your new project. You're doing new stuff. I heard you talking to Jamie about.
Yeah. So, well, I, to be honest, I thought for maybe about 6 months, do I still want to be in carp fishing? Do I not want to be in carp fishing? What do I want to do with my life? This is a bit of a, I don't know, it could be a midlife crisis, or it could be like, could take on a whole different, career path. Do I want a career? What do I want? It was, there was a definitive end to Carp-Talk, and it was like, I need to start something new. What am I going to do? And to be honest, I'd still not really figured it out, what I wanted to do, but I'd figured out that I wanted to stay in the industry, and I was always going to do my Ladies Carp Academy, and Carp Team England was always going to feature heavily. So I was like, yeah, I think I'll probably end up staying in the industry. Or I thought I'd do something involved with sort of like women in sport and try and maybe get some work, something that along the lines of, getting women into sport. And then Kumu, the clothing brand, I'd been involved with the guys, just helping them out really, just wearing the gear, and become really good friends with the guys through Carp-Talk back in the day when they were on the beaten track. And they approached me to see if I wanted to start working with them just one day a week at first, starting getting them into tackle shops. So that was a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, I absolutely love the guys, love the brand. And again, it was in the industry and something that sort of would come natural. So I said about doing that, and then I got a really odd phone call out the blue from one of the guys that I know through the industry, and he was like, really randomly ringing you, Bev, how are you? But I had a bit of a catch up, and he went, I was just wanting to ring you, see if you'd be interested in getting in touch with, see if you'd be interested in me putting you in touch with some guys that are setting up something that's pretty cool, and I think you'd be pretty interested in. They've expressed an interest with working with you, because I said you were coming out the mags and that you were potentially looking for work. He said, so if you are, and if it's something you'd be interested in, do you want to have a chat with them? So he told me a little bit about it, that it was technology based, what the guys were going to be doing. And I was like, and to be fair, it must have caught me on a good day, because sometimes I won't even answer my phone. I'd be like, what does that person want? But I'd gone with it, and ended up talking to the guys, finding out what they were doing, and straight away I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, I want to be involved with it. And it's something that angling is really lacking. So it's technology based, obviously, an online platform called Catch, and it's got sort of two sides to it. So there's the angler sort of view to it, which from an angler's perspective, it will be a way for them to sort of search, discover and book venues, for them to sort of search for a lake based on loads of different criteria, using sort of all the latest AI technology, book the lake, and then have all the details regarding their booking in one place. So it will be app based and also computer based, and then they will basically have like, so like Apple, you've got like your passport, so you'll have basically like a fishing passport kind of thing. So that's sort of the angler view, and as time goes on, years down the line, we've got loads of ideas and loads of scope where that is going to grow. But for the initial launch, that will be the key sort of components to it. And then from the fishery side of the perspective, it's a complete fishery management tool. So there is some kind of like booking booking facilities out there now. This is so much more than that. It's got inbuilt marketing, something that like I'm really interested in, like how it's going to enable fisheries to promote their fishery in such a sort of an easy way for them, that they don't even need to understand sort of the technology, they don't need to understand marketing. It's sort of inbuilt in for them to be able to promote themselves with a couple of clicks. Because you've probably seen this, there's so many fisheries out there, and as I've been looking into it, and doing, research, just, familiarising myself and looking up new fisheries. There's so many little fisheries out there that you find that they've got a Facebook page. They haven't even got all their own details on their Facebook page. They haven't got a website. And to build a good website, you're looking at, even if they get a good deal, it's a couple of grand. But, really, they'll get rinsed for 20 grand, if it's a, legit firm, and these little fisheries can't afford that, and some of these little fisheries have got some mint fish in them, and they're on people's doorsteps, but they don't know about them because these fisheries don't know how to market themselves. So it's got, really good marketing built into it, fishery management, just some really cool technology that will.
Are there many fisheries at the moment where you can actually book? Day ticket fisheries where you can actually book online, because you can't do that linear or anywhere, can you?
No. I won't disclose some of the fisheries that we've got signed up already. No. I'm allowed to disclose other things, but I think I'll keep that one just on the back burner in case I'm not allowed to say. Yeah. But we've got some big names signed up already, and there isn't that many, but I think we've seen a lot more have to have that online booking facility because of COVID. And I think a lot more are realising that in this day and age, people want certainty, don't they? And, the guys that are forming this platform, yes, they're from a technology background and they've worked in technology for years, but they're avid anglers. And they had a couple of instances where they'd driven, 200 miles to a popular day ticket, got there and it's full. And it's like, shit, where are we going to go now? And it happens all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. You just think
that's a great idea. It's we've been a bit. I mean, in golf and stuff like that. I play golf, and so you just go on and book a tee time anywhere. I like the criteria thing as well. So you might not necessarily even know where you want to go fishing. You just put in what your criteria is, and it suggests.
Yeah, and it searches
it based on your
criteria. Because, like I think I mentioned earlier, one of the things we used to get asked all the time. And I still get asked it now, is like, where can I go fishing in Berkshire? It's like, I've had a really privileged position in angling that, I've been able to fish some of them, like, really like either, exclusive waters as guesties or, the popular day tickets, because I've been able to, have swims reserved, and I appreciate that. It's really privileged. And I'm forever grateful for that. So I don't have a massive knowledge of, certain places in certain areas. I just know the ones that I've either visited or the popular ones. So when people say, where can I go fishing in so and so, it's like, mate, I don't know. Like,
how do you build a database together then? That's a lot of work, isn't it?
Well, that's a lot of work. But so I mean, we did have a database at Carp-Talk. We had the 500 carp waters book, which we'd compiled over years. That's
like the BK guide.
Years. Do you remember that BK guide?
Yeah, BK guide. I mean, we all had
like
it.
That thick.
Yeah.
I think the last one was purple, wasn't it? Was it like a purpley colour?
When did they stop doing that?
Like did they do one in the early 2000s?
No, I mean, I had them in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember 1996 being one.
So that's the closest thing at the moment to what you're doing then.
We had the 500 carp waters, yeah. We compiled that, 500 open access carp waters. But the thing with like books and stuff like that, and in this day and age, is as soon as that magazine was back from the printers, book was back from the printers, it was out of date because, the record fish have changed, because fish is always changing weights. And even when we'd, done the last print run, the internet is so prominent and people want the latest up-to-date information that, it'd be out there and then people would ring up and like, that's not correct. Oh, yeah, no, it's not correct because the fish has just eaten a bit more and got a bit fatter. It's just like, what do you want? But it's like people expect that information to be like instantly like that, and it's like, holy shit, mate, it's only just happened. Just give us chance. And that's the thing, with books and stuff like that, that information's, is. And it's like anything that's, printed now, it's before it's even back from the printers, it's out of date because the world moves so fast, thanks to people like Steve Jobs and, Thanks, Steve.
Yes, So Catch. So when can we expect to see it?
So Catch will officially be launched on the 16th of June.
Oh, that's a nice
not
day,
long at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, not long at all. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Loads of stuff starting to come soon. And any fisheries that want to find out more, drop myself a line. I'll be able to tell you. Be able to show you through some stuff.
Just in case, Bev, where can they find you if they want to drop you a line?
Me, Instagram, Facebook. Instagram's probably easiest. My email. So drop me an email, bev.clifford1@gmail.com.
There'll be a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, also anybody that wants to get involved with the women's carp side of things, always get in touch.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, no, that's an exciting project. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's cool. I think catfishing's got everything, even down to, catfishing was late to the game with podcasts. I know Jamie and Mark were probably too early to the game with the Carp Cast.
I think so, yeah.
A bit too early, but I think...
It took about two or 3 years before anybody else cottoned onto it. It was just...
I know when I was listening to... And then my brother got me into listening to podcasts for long run days. I remember he used to say, I was listening to this podcast, and people would look at you like, podcast? What's podcast? It's like, well, it's on the Apple phone. You've all got an Apple phone, but it's like they've not discovered what that button did.
People just delete it now. Oh, what's that? I don't use that.
Yeah.
We still have to explain to people what podcasts are. We've asked people to come on the show. We've had to explain to them what a podcast is.
Yeah.
It's just... still... but no, they were quick to Jamie's a quick thinker. He's coming on the podcast anyway.
Jamie's great. I love chatting to Jamie. He's really interesting. He knows how to party.
Yeah, I've heard this.
He can still party though. When I was listening to I think he was listening to his podcast with you maybe, when he said he'd done a 5-day bender. I was like, oh my God, there was a little bit inside of me that died just knowing how he would have felt after that, remembering those painful...
Felt like death by day 4.
Yeah. I think I only ever managed 3 nights without sleep, and that was it. And I remember how I felt afterwards. And it just felt broken. It's just not a good state of affairs, was it?
Yeah, and maybe not for me. I don't. Maybe not. Definitely not 3 days. Maybe 2 days, and maybe not under the influence of drugs and drink either. But
my
benders were a bit different.
Now I decide to do 100-mile runs when you don't get any sleep doing it. And there's some things that are relatable to that sort of mind-altering substances that I've taken in the past that you go through when you're endurance running.
It's exactly the same. You're producing, maybe not like hallucinogenics or, But
I've certainly hallucinated on long runs.
Oh, I've hallucinated as well.
When you've been...
Yeah, when you're at altitude or whatever, and you think, I don't know where I am here.
Where am I?
Snowblind or whatever. But no, I know he's an interesting guy, Jamie. I spoke to him on the phone for 5 hours one night, and we didn't mention carp fishing once.
Yeah,
it's just
another really cool guy, and Jamie's caught some phenomenal carp.
He has,
in the past.
and he said to me before, he's I've mentioned it before and stuff, but it's like I've listened to the Carp-Cast a lot, and Jamie talks.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He talks about where he's going for, but no one actually questions him and gets the inside stuff on it. He tells you what he wants to sort of say, so it'd be good. It'd be good to hear.
Jamie, for years, I've known the name Jamie Clossett for as long as I can remember, because he always used to send his catch reports into the mag.
Yeah.
I think we had him on the cover a few times. He's caught some phenomenal carp. He caught Tatton fish. That was a mega fish.
I think there's Colmere fish as well, where what he caught. That was just.
Yeah. See, I haven't been northern there, and you've been southern again. I'm like, come on, those northern fish, and you've been like, I'll keep it real with the Colmere fish.
Yeah. Well, we would, wouldn't we?
You would, yeah. Do you think carp exist up north?
I don't know. Have I actually fished up north? I don't actually think.
Come on, let's interview you.
No, the first.
So, how do you feel about northern carp fishing?
I'm always going to sit on the wall, Bev.
Oh, come on, that's rubbish.
Do you know the furthest I've been north is Cuttle Mill?
Is that past the Watford Gap?
Only just. So you're suggesting that maybe I do a little bit more like northern carp fishing?
I think you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, come and see what it's all about.
I'll come on to your Syndicate with your £60 comment.
You'll need your big jacket.
In that. Yeah.
I didn't big up that Syndicate lake enough. I need to give myself some credibility with that. That is what proper carp anglers would call, I think, a big windswept pit.
Yeah.
They'd give it that, because it's always windy on there, and it is a big pit. It's like 65 acres. So, you could dress it up with all those super carpy terms.
Yeah.
But
some people could.
Yeah, they love dressing it up and making it sound like really dangerous, don't they? You know, like the big winds, when they were like there holding on for dear life.
There's certain people around I can think of that could definitely, add a bit of extra creativity to it.
Yeah, extra creativity.
But just a big windswept pit with a massive carp in it.
Yeah, it's just a really nice bit of water. Yeah. It's the way the AGS fisheries that run it, Anthony Sylvester, who's again, been around for as long as I can remember. I can't remember when he acquired it. But yeah, they've done a really nice job so that, you know, there's in each of the swims that they're not, you know, super manicured, but, you know, they're sensible, so you're never going to put fish at risk or anything like that. But, you know, when you park up, you know, a lot of the swims have got high bushes in them, so, you know, vans are hidden behind them. So, you know, when you're looking across the lake, you're not seeing a load of people. And because it's so big and, you know, there's not, you know, ridiculous amounts of members and ridiculous amounts of people fishing it all the time, that, you know, you've always got options to move, and it's just a really nice vibe, and it's really nice and well run. So
yeah, no, good luck with that. It sounds good.
It
sounds
is nice.
Good, yeah.
It's a nice place to be, and they allow dogs.
Do they? Yeah, well, they got to, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I get why some places don't allow dogs, and I think that's often because idiots have spoilt it by not picking up the dog poo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get me started on dog poo. I love Dean Macy's rants on dog poo. If anybody watched Dean Macy's rants on dog poo, that's my opinion on dog poo.
Is it? Yeah. Bev, it's been a great show. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Keep up the good work. You're a trailblazer. For women anglers but for people in general, because it's not just women anglers that are listening to this, is it? You know, everyone's you're a good example to set to everybody, and you know, keep up the hard work.
Thank you,
and good luck with that 60-pounder.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It wouldn't be nice first session back.
Yeah, and hopefully fingers crossed with the World Championships this year as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice if we can get that ahead.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.